Copyright 2025 by Samantha Price. All rights reserved. Chapter 1. Ettie sat on the couch, scissors in hand, glaring at the fabric. When Elsa-May had suggested sewing a quilt to use as a throw, it had seemed like a good idea. Now Ettie just wanted to be done with it. "Don't give it that look," Elsa-May said from her chair, adjusting her glasses. "I shouldn't have agreed to this. It'll take us a year to finish at this rate." Elsa-May shrugged. "You agreed fair and square. I didn't have to twist your arm. I only agreed because you wore me down. And because you wouldn't stop talking about how cozy it'd be to have a quilt on the couch like Maggie has at her place." Elsa-May's eyes twinkled. "Picture it, us wrapped up on a cold winter day sipping tea, surrounded by love. Well, my love? Your aggravation." "You forgot something very important," Ettie said. "Oh? Sharing. You're terrible at it. Remember when we were kids and had to share a bed that time? I woke up frozen and you'd taken the entire thing for yourself. I had a nasty cold for a week after that." Elsa-May laughed. "I was asleep. I didn't do it on purpose." She paused. "Don't you think it'll be nice once it's finished? Once I start something, I like to finish it. That's why I don't like knitting, it's too slow. Now cooking is fine because it only takes a little time, and then you can eat it. What you need is patience. You've never really had any. Always looking out the window wanting to go somewhere. Always wanting excitement. Always." Ettie looked down, frowning at the scissors. "Keep it up and I'll lose what patience I have. That brings me to something else that's been bothering me. You're being very friendly with Maggie lately." Elsa-May smirked. "I think you're hungry. Why don't we have a break?" Kelly, their orange cat, perked up at the word break and batted at a loose thread. "See? Even Kelly agrees," Elsa-May said. Ettie sighed at the fabric pile. "Fine after this square." Snowy, their dog, plopped at Elsa-May's feet with a noise that sounded like an exaggerated sigh. "You're all so dramatic," Elsa-May muttered, nudging him with her foot. "You've been watching Ettie too much." Ettie held up the finished square triumphantly. "Done." "Finally." Elsa-May stretched her arms overhead. "I've got a good idea. Why not sew pockets into the quilt for snacks?" Ettie suggested. "Snacks like crumbling cookies?" Elsa-May got to her feet. "Well, it's just an idea. It would save us getting up and going to the kitchen. It's a wonder no one's thought of that before." "Crumbs everywhere? Not your best idea, Ettie." Elsa-May headed to the kitchen. "I've got half a pumpkin pie left," she called, pulling plates from the cupboard. Ettie followed and filled the kettle. "For all your longing for a couch quilt, I've done most of the sewing. I'm supervising. Or avoiding." Elsa-May handed over a plate. "I'm good at doing two things at once. You could argue your way out of anything." They sat at the table with warm drinks and pie. After a contented sigh, Elsa-May said, "This quilt is one of the best ideas I've had." Ettie paused mid-bite. "I'll remind you of that when you're untangling Kelly from thread later. What we need is a quilting bag, like you've got a knitting bag for your wool. We could put everything in there so it's safe from Kelly when we aren't around to watch over it." Ettie chuckled, thinking about how large it would have to be. Elsa-May wasn't really listening to Eddie's strange idea. She set down her teacup. "Good idea. Now, I've been waiting for the right moment to tell you. There's an antique quilt display at the town hall tomorrow." "I know. I heard about it." "Yes, but what you don't know is that we're going. Maggie is picking us up." Ettie took a moment to get used to the idea. "Maggie again? Are you sure you wouldn't rather go with just Maggie? Just the two of you?" "Of course not. Maggie is going, and she asked if we'd like to come along, so I said yes. She has a horse and buggy, and we don't, otherwise we'd have to get a taxi, and taxis cost money." What Elsa-May said made sense, but still, Ettie couldn't help being a little annoyed at how Maggie and Elsa-May got along so well. "You mean we'll be staring at other people's quilts and pretending to be impressed?" Elsa-May smiled. "These quilts tell stories, some are nearly 200 years old." "Will they serve food there?" Otherwise, I'm not sure that a day of looking at quilts will hold my attention. I'm sure there'll be food. There's also a demonstration on hand-dyeing fabric, Elsa-May added. And you know how people love to talk. Ettie tapped her fingers on the armrest. Gossip and fabric dyeing. You really know how to convince someone. So you'll go? Elsa-May leaned forward, hopeful. All right. But don't expect me to sit quietly. I've been doing too much sitting lately. Elsa-May chuckled. I wouldn't dream of it. Snowy walked into the kitchen, letting out a small bark. You're excited too? They're not letting you in, you know, Ettie told the dog. Elsa-May patted Snowy and gave him one of his dog treats she'd made earlier. Maybe we'll even see a quilt featuring a brave dog. We'll tell you all about it when we get home, Snowy. Ettie shook her head. You'd turn anything into a story. In the living room, Kelly lay on the quilt in progress, batting his paw at the threads. Chapter 2. The following morning, Ettie spotted something concerning during breakfast. Elsa-May, come here for a second. What now? My left ankle, Ettie said, pointing. Doesn't it look puffier than the right one? Elsa-May shuffled over to crouch slightly. Both ankles look the same. No, look closer. Ettie wiggled her left foot. It's definitely swollen. Give it a poke. Elsa-May hesitated, before jabbing a finger lightly at Ettie's ankle. All right, fine. Maybe it's a little puffier. But hardly worth the worry. It's fluid buildup. I've been sitting too much and not exercising enough. It's all that sewing you're making me do. Last week you were convinced your blood pressure was too high. Now it's fluid buildup. I need to start moving around more. Next you'll tell me you need to walk laps around the house while you leave me to quilt. That's not a bad idea. Well, suit yourself. The only walking I'll be doing is when it's totally unavoidable. Like taking Snowy for his walk. Elsa-May chuckled. I can do things by myself. From now on, I'm going to do more things alone to show you I don't need you. Elsa-May's mouth turned down at the corners. Don't say that. I like it when we do things together. That's why I'm so excited about us sewing the quilt together. I suppose it's good. So you didn't mean what you said? No. I'm sorry. I'm just worried about my ankle. I know, I'll walk to the quilt show. What? Elsa-May squawked. You can't do that. It's too far. I can do it. Are you serious? You're going to walk the entire way on foot. Of course. How else would I walk without my feet? So how far do you think it would be? Elsa-May thought for a while. I'd say about 5 miles. 5 miles is nothing. How long do you think it will take me? Depends on how fast you walk. I won't be walking fast. I don't want to overdo things. I'll just walk at a normal pace. Elsa-May shook her head. In that case, I'd guess about 2 hours. Ettie glanced at the clock and frowned. 2 hours? I'll end up getting there late. I can't do that. Maybe you should reconsider and go with me and Maggie. Ettie ignored the suggestion and instead lifted her foot. I can't just ignore it and do nothing. Maybe it's just old age. It's not old age, Ettie snapped. There's a perfectly logical reason, and I've already figured it out, too much sitting. I told you this. I'm going to walk the swelling away. Elsa-May muttered something under her breath, but didn't argue further as Ettie grabbed her bag. Ettie turned back briefly and gave a confident wave. Goodbye. See you there, and I hope you're right about there being food. Snowy trotted over, his tail wagging eagerly as Ettie reached for her bag. He let out an excited bark and nudged her leg as if to say, I'm coming too. Ettie sighed and crouched down to ruffle his ears. You can't come, Snowy. Dogs aren't allowed at the quilt show. Snowy responded with another wag, looking up at her with hopeful eyes. Oh, just take him. I'm sure it'll be fine, Elsa-May said from her chair. He can't come inside. It's a quilt show, not a walk in the park. Why not? Why not? Ettie echoed, exasperated. Because some poor soul will trip over him, Or he'd decide a quilt looked like a giant chew toy. Elsa-May chuckled. I think you're just making excuses. Snowy will probably be better behaved than half the people there. Snowy let out a small but polite bark, as if seconding the motion. Ettie sighed, glancing down at the eager dog. Fine. But you'll have to keep up with me. A 5-mile walk? He'll love you forever, Elsa-May said with a grin. Ettie grabbed his leash and clipped it to his collar. As she stepped outside, she was pleased it was such a nice day. We'll walk nice and steady, Snowy, not too fast, not too slow. The morning sun warmed her back, and birds singing made everything peaceful. Snowy trotted beside her, tail high and happy. She shook her head and muttered, You're not getting near any quilts. Ah, Snowy, I don't really think we need a quilt for the couch just because Maggie has one. What do you think? Snowy just kept walking. I mean, we can't do everything Maggie does. For the first half-mile, Ettie felt good, better than she had in days, and she smiled, imagining Elsa-May's face when she showed up at the quilt show. We'll show her, Snowy. Ettie chuckled to herself. Distracted by looking at Snowy, she didn't notice a tree branch hidden by the grass. She tripped, arms flailing as she tried to catch herself, and hit the ground with a thud. She lay there for a moment while Snowy licked her face. Well, that's just perfect, she grumbled, pushing herself up. She got to her feet, brushed the dirt off her dress, and resumed her walk, muttering about how branches had no business being on the side of the road. A few minutes later, she spotted a large rock ahead. Determined not to make the same mistake twice, Ettie took an exaggerated step over it, only to land squarely in fresh horse manure. Her eyes widened in shock and disgust as she stared at her now filthy boot. Oh no! My new boots! Leaning against a tree, she grabbed a stick from the roadside and began scraping the manure off the sole of her boot. After doing her best to clean her shoe, Ettie and Snowy resumed walking. Her triumphant stride had turned into a cautious shuffle, as she tried to avoid any more unfortunate surprises. By the halfway point, her legs felt like lead. Her ankles throbbed, and the earlier joy of the walk had long since evaporated. Now the birds' chirping sounded more like laughter. How are you doing, Snowy? You look puffed as well. We might have a little rest. Just as she was about to sit on an old log, she heard the clop-clop of horse hooves. Ettie turned to see a buggy approaching, Maggie's horse and buggy. Elsa-May sat in front, looking far too comfortable and smug. As they drew closer, Maggie waved cheerfully. Elsa-May leaned out slightly and called, Change your mind? Ettie placed her hands on her hips. She desperately wanted to say no, and that she would easily be able to finish her walk. No, she muttered. I could go on, of course, but Snowy needs a rest. He won't be able to make it. Elsa-May laughed as Maggie pulled the horse and buggy to a halt. We'll just take him then, and you can finish your walk. No. I might as well come too, Ettie said, hurrying over with Snowy trailing behind. Well, come on then. Hop in before you collapse, Maggie said. Ettie lifted Snowy into the buggy, before climbing in herself and settling onto the seat. Elsa-May leaned over, sniffing the air, her nose wrinkling. What's that dreadful smell? Maggie sniffed too and winced. Oh, I'm getting a whiff of it now. It's awful. Ettie glanced down at her boot and grimaced. It's me, sadly. I stepped in something. Anyone got any spare shoes? Maggie stifled a laugh. Actually, I do. I was bringing an extra pair to change into later if I needed them, but you can use them. And I have a paper bag you can put your shoes in. Thank you, Maggie. Ettie reached back and pulled out a simple pair of sturdy shoes, slipping them on gratefully. They were probably 2 sizes too large, but at least they didn't smell. The buggy began rolling forward again, the smell lingering slightly despite the breeze. Well, Elsa-May said after a moment, her eyes twinkling with amusement, at least you got your exercise. And a job of scrubbing boots, Ettie muttered, adjusting her shawl. Remind me never to walk 5 miles again. Or even 2 miles. Elsa-May nodded, looking pleased. Gladly. From the back seat, Ettie leaned closer to Maggie. So tell us about this quilt show. What should we expect? Maggie was just telling me about the organizer, Clara. She's quite famous, Elsa-May said. Maggie's face lit up with enthusiasm as she adjusted the reins. Clara Weaver's not just famous, she's practically legendary in the quilting world. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't know her, especially if they're even a little interested in quilts. Legendary? That's quite a claim, Elsa-May said, eyebrows lifted. Trust me, it's not an exaggeration. Clara grew up Amish just like us, but she left her community when she was in her early 20s. Why did she leave? Ettie asked. Oh, the usual reasons. She wanted to explore the world outside, and wasn't ready to settle into our way of life. But the interesting thing is that even though she left, she never gave up her love of quilts. If anything, it grew stronger. So what did she do? Just start quilting on her own. That's hardly any fun, that's why we like to sew in groups. Ettie quickly added, for those of us who enjoy quilting, that is. Maggie chuckled. Clara doesn't just quilt, she has turned it into a whole career. She started a YouTube channel about quilting called Quilt or Quit. She's an expert and there's talk of her doing a TV show. Elsa-May proceeded to explain to Ettie what YouTube was. Quilt or Quit. That sounds dramatic, Ettie said, mouth twitching. It is, Maggie laughed, but it suits her. Clara's whole idea is that quilting isn't just a craft, it's a commitment. If you're going to quilt, you need to really love it. She's known for pushing people to be bold and creative in their projects. She says if you're not passionate about what you're making, you might as well quit. I hope I get to meet her. I think I'd like her, Elsa-May said thoughtfully. Oh, you will. I met her a couple of years ago, and we kept in touch through letters. I've become good friends with her and her sister Marla. Clara's videos are watched by people all over the world. She's got tutorials on everything from simple patchwork throws to intricate applique designs. And she shares stories too, personal ones about her upbringing and the way quilting helped her stay connected to her roots. And she authenticates old quilts. So she's popular because she's talented and a nice person? Ettie asked, resting her hands in her lap. Exactly, Maggie replied. She's made quilting feel accessible to everyone, whether they're beginners or experts. And she doesn't shy away from the hard stuff. She talks about the mistakes she's made, the projects that went sideways. People love that she's real. That's something you don't always see. Some people only want to show their successes, Elsa-May said softly. Clara's the opposite. She says her mistakes taught her more than any of her successes. And you should see some of the quilts she's made, pieces that tell whole stories through fabric. She's even done quilted portraits. Ettie's eyes widened. Quilted portraits? You're joking. Don't get any ideas, Elsa-May. We're having enough trouble with a single quilt. I'm not the one having trouble, Ettie. So don't include me in your grumbling, Elsa-May said. And Clara doesn't just stay in one place either, Maggie continued. She travels to quilt shows all over the country. She's won competitions, written books, she's even been featured in magazines. But she always says her favorite thing is to teach others. That's why she's here today. She's giving a talk? Ettie asked, leaning forward. And a demonstration. She's going to show how to make a modern twist on a traditional Amish star quilt. Then it can't be called traditional, can it? Ettie looked out the window. What was that, Ettie? Maggie asked. Oh, don't mind her. She's always finding fault with everything. Ettie's mouth fell open. She wasn't like that at all, but it wasn't worth arguing, especially in front of Maggie. The buggy rounded a bend, and the town hall came into view, its front lawn bustling with people. Looks like it's already busy. Clara always draws a crowd, Maggie said, slowing the buggy. Well, it sounds like today's going to be more interesting than I expected if all these people have come, Ettie said. They climbed out of the buggy, and Ettie took a moment to smooth her dress and glance down at her clean borrowed shoes. Let's keep these manure-free, shall we? Elsa-May said, looking at Ettie's oversized boots. I'll do my best. Ettie tried to hand Snowy over to Elsa-May. You hold on to him, Ettie. You're the one that brought him. Elsa-May hurried into the hall ahead of her with Maggie. Inside, vibrant quilts draped across racks and stands in every direction, their intricate designs drawing admiration from attendees. Quilters swapped stories about family patterns and generations of handiwork. Maggie led them close to the stage where Clara Weaver stood, looking both elegant and frazzled. Her tailored dress gave her a refined appearance, but her restless eyes flitted across the room as if searching for something. She was next to a woman of similar appearance, and Ettie wondered if they might be twins. "Clara, these are my friends Ettie and Elsa-May," Maggie said. "And this is Marla, Clara's sister." Marla gave them a nod, and Clara offered a polite, distant smile. "Nice to meet you. I hope you're enjoying the show." "We don't know yet. We just got here," Ettie said, getting a nudge in the ribs from Elsa-May. Marla excused herself and hurried away, murmuring something about finding someone. "We've heard a lot about you." "It's so good to meet you," Elsa-May said to Clara. Clara barely registered the compliment. "Thank you." "Who is Marla looking for?" Maggie asked, furrowing her brow. "My cameraman. He should be shooting this whole thing right now. He was talking about doing a live stream. This is all supposed to be filmed." "The man over there with the camera, is that him?" Maggie pointed to a tall man in a flannel shirt snapping photos near the entrance. Clara followed Maggie's gesture and sighed. "No, that's just Dave Dublin. He's a pest looking for me to give him a job. I'm looking for Walter Heiser. You know him, don't you, Maggie?" "Oh, Walter. Yes, I met him a couple of times when you visited. I'm sorry, but I'll have to keep looking for him." Snowy moved forward and sniffed Clara's leg. She stared down at him disapprovingly. "Is my sister's dog a problem?" "I'm sorry, but my sister just had to bring him," Elsa-May said, shaking her head. "The dog's fine. Just keep him on a tight leash." Without another word, Clara hurried off, disappearing into the crowd. Ettie turned to Elsa-May. "Snowy's my dog now. And you suggested leaving him at home?" Elsa-May gently tugged on Ettie's sleeve. "Come on, let's look at the quilts. You lead the way, Maggie." The three ladies wandered through the rows of displays. Each quilt was a masterpiece of color and craftsmanship, but after a few minutes Ettie's focus wavered. Her feet ached from the oversized boots and she winced with each step. Elsa-May had already moved ahead, engrossed in admiring a complex double-star pattern. Ettie slowed her pace, and eventually stopped by a quiet corner where several rolled-up quilts were stacked neatly. She let out a sigh and mumbled, "No one will mind if I sit for a minute. We need a rest, don't we, Snowy?" Snowy's ears perked up, and before Ettie could react he bolted forward, the leash slipping from her grasp. "Snowy!" Ettie shouted, racing after him. The dog weaved through the crowd, his tail wagging like this was the best game in the world. He bounded toward a display of rolled-up quilts near the entrance, sending the colorful bundles tumbling. Ettie lunged, but her two big boots caught the edge of a rug. She stumbled, arms flailing, and toppled forward. The stack of quilts shifted beneath her like an avalanche, scattering in every direction as she landed face first in the pile. The room fell silent. Every eye turned toward her. "Ettie!" Elsa-May's voice rang out from behind the crowd. Ettie groaned and pushed herself up, her cheeks burning. She reached out to steady herself and froze. Her hand wasn't on fabric. It pressed against something hard, unyielding. Her pulse thundered as she glanced down. Lying between the pile of quilts was a man, his face pale and still. His eyes were closed, and his body lay partially obscured beneath the colorful fabric. Ettie's breath hitched in her throat. Elsa-May pushed her way through the crowd and gasped. Ettie's voice came out hoarse, trembling. "He's dead." Chapter 3. Maggie and Elsa-May rushed over, their faces pale with shock. What happened?" Elsa-May knelt beside her sister. I fell," Ettie stammered. "And he was just here." Maggie pressed a hand to her mouth. "That's Walter Heiser. The man Clara was looking for?" Elsa-May asked, wide-eyed. "Yes. But what's he doing here, like this?" An organizer hurried over with Clara Weaver. Clara's face went ashen at the scene. "Walter." Her voice wavered. "Someone call 911, Elsa-May helped Ettie up. Clara's hands trembled. "He was supposed to meet me an hour ago." "Clara, do you know what happened?" Marla touched her sister's arm. Clara shook her head. I don't know. Is he dead?" "Yes," Ettie said softly. Clara burst into tears. Snowy ran up to Ettie, who grabbed his leash and sank onto a nearby chair, trying to process what had happened. "Are you all right?" Elsa-May asked. I should never have brought Snowy. That was your idea. The man's death had nothing to do with Snowy. But I didn't want to be the one to find him. That was Snowy's fault and these big boots. Elsa-May patted her hand. You've had a dreadful fright. Just bruised, but at least I'm not dead like that poor man. I wonder what he died from. I wouldn't like to guess, but he was hidden between those quilts, so. Do you think he was murdered? Ettie whispered. Elsa-May pressed a finger to her lips. The paramedics arrived and confirmed the death. The hall grew eerily quiet as Detective Kelly entered with several officers, his sharp gaze sweeping the room. He shook his head slightly at Ettie and Elsa-May but said nothing, motioning to his officers to organize the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, an officer announced, no one leaves until we've gathered your information. This is now an active investigation. Officers arranged yellow crime scene tape around the body and quilts. Uneasy murmurs spread through the room as people exchanged nervous glances. Clara stood near the body, pale and trembling. We'll need to speak with everyone. Please move to the main seating area. The crowd shuffled toward the chairs. Ettie winced as she shifted her ankle. Elsa-May watched the scene, arms crossed tightly. You all right? She asked again. Fine, Ettie muttered despite her throbbing ankle. They're taking this very seriously, Maggie said, returning from speaking with an officer. As they should, Ettie replied, her gaze drifting to Walter's covered form. An officer approached with forms. We're collecting names, addresses, and statements. Please fill these out clearly. What a day, Elsa-May muttered. Maggie wrapped an arm around Clara. Come on, let's get you some air. Clara hesitated before nodding. Maggie led her out, with Marla following. Detective Kelly watched them go, giving a small nod of approval. The detective moved to examine the body, crouching beside it. After a long moment he stood. Check everything, he ordered quietly. Collect all food and drinks. Bag it all. If this was poison, I want to know what did it. Officers began packing plates, cups, and cherry cupcakes into evidence bags, plastic rustling throughout the room. We'll need your name, address, and phone numbers if you have any, an officer told Ettie and Elsa-May, offering a notepad. After they'd done that, Ettie looked up to see Detective Kelly approaching them. Her heart started thumping, thinking of all the sarcastic, disapproving things he'd have to say. Chapter 4. Detective Kelly looked over and walked toward them, his expression unreadable. Good morning, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Lutz. Good morning, they said in unison. Funny to find you both here. Snowy barked at him, tail wagging. Kelly frowned at the dog, then looked back at the sisters. What brought you both here today? I walked part of the way, but Elsa-May came with Maggie in her buggy, Ettie said. He doesn't mean that, Ettie. He means he wants to know why we're at the quilt show, Elsa-May explained. Oh, to see the quilts. And you literally stumbled on a dead body. How did that happen? Ettie glanced down at her boots. These aren't mine. They're borrowed. I won't tell you why. Then Snowy got away from me while I was chasing him. He knocked over the quilts. That's exactly what happened, Elsa-May confirmed, straightening in her chair. Did either of you know the deceased? Not at all. Ettie shook her head vigorously. How did he die? Elsa-May asked, leaning forward. Kelly's lips quirked. No obvious wounds so far. We'll know more after the autopsy. A camera flash went off nearby. Dave Dublin stood at the edge of the crime scene, snapping photos of the covered body. Hey! Kelly barked, striding over. Show some respect. He snatched the camera from Dublin's hands. I'm just doing my job, Dublin protested. This is a crime scene, not a photo opportunity. Kelly handed the camera to an officer. Log this as evidence. There might be something useful on here. Dublin opened his mouth to argue but thought better of it when he saw Kelly's expression. Returning to Ettie and Elsa-May, Kelly's gaze settled on Ettie. Are you all right, Mrs. Smith? That was quite a shock you had. I feel fine. Ettie shifted in her seat. Did I hear you say you're taking all the food? I could use a piece of cake. I feel like I need some sugar. Everything's evidence now. I'm sorry. Kelly paused, studying them both. I'd like you to come down to the station tomorrow morning. We'll need formal statements. Both of us? Elsa-May asked. Yes. 9 o'clock sharp. He glanced at Snowy. Leave the dog at home. Tomorrow? Ettie frowned. But we have. 9 o'clock, Kelly repeated firmly. Now send those 3 ladies inside to talk with me. I believe they are friends of yours? 1 friend and 2 acquaintances, Ettie said. Fine, just send them in. He gave them one last skeptical look before they walked out the door. Ettie and Elsa-May found Maggie outside. She stood with Clara and Marla, her arms still around Clara's shoulders as the woman dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. This wasn't how today was supposed to go, Clara whispered. I'm so sorry about this, but the detective wants to see the 3 of you. Everybody has been questioned and given their contact information. Nothing was said, and the 3 ladies went back into the building. Once the 3 women had gone inside, Ettie lingered near the door, pressing close to the wall. What are you doing? Elsa-May whispered, tugging at her sister's sleeve. Listening, Ettie whispered back. Hush now. Through the gap, Detective Kelly's voice carried clearly. Please have a seat, ladies. I just need to get some basic information from each of you. There was the sound of chairs scraping against the floor. Names and contact information first, Kelly said. The scratching of his pencil punctuated each response. Clara Weaver, 247 Cedar Creek Road, Cedar Creek. Marla Weaver and we lived together. Maggie Overberg, 456 Peaceful Valley Road. I barely knew Walter. Detective jotting something down in his notebook and then looked up at Clara. And what was your relationship with Walter Heiser? He was my business partner, Clara said, her voice still shaky. Well, silent partner really. He did all the photography for the channel. The channel? Clara's quilting channel, Marla explained. I'm Clara's assistant. That's my job. There was a pause, and the sound of pages turning. Were any of you in a personal relationship with Mr. Heiser? No, all 3 women answered in unison. Though. Maggie's voice hesitated. Their sister Bonnie used to be involved with him. Several years ago now. Bonnie. Kelly's pencil scratched again. Would that be another Weaver sister? Yes, Clara said stiffly. But we don't have anything to do with her anymore. I'll still need her address. There was another pause before Marla provided it. Was Mr. Heiser married? Detective Kelly asked. Never has been, Marla answered. How? Clara's voice cracked slightly. How did he just die like that? He was fine earlier today. We're still looking into things, Kelly said, his tone professional but not unkind. I'll know more in a day or 2. There's no physical indication of foul play so far, but sometimes these things take time to investigate properly. But you think something might be wrong? Marla pressed. The way you're asking all these questions suggests that you think someone might have taken his life. It's standard procedure. We need to be thorough. I'll be in touch if I need any additional information from any of you. Chairs scraped again as they stood. Ettie quickly pulled back from the door, grabbing Elsa-May's arm and hurrying them both toward Maggie's buggy. Well? Elsa-May asked once they were safely out of earshot. He suspects something, Ettie said firmly. Did you hear how he asked about relationships? And Bonnie? Who's Bonnie? Apparently there's a 3rd sister, Bonnie. You think Bonnie might be involved? Elsa-May asked. I think Detective Kelly thinks she might be. And Clara and Marla weren't exactly forthcoming about their sister. Because it was Maggie who mentioned her. Oh, and I forgot to tell you that Bonnie used to date him. That's very interesting. What else did you hear? No obvious cause of death, he said, and no signs of foul play. But why ask about relationships unless he suspects something? Shush, they're coming. Chapter 5. After the detective talked with Clara, Marla, and Maggie, they rejoined Ettie and Elsa-May outside. You can't go back to the hotel alone after all this, Maggie said decisively to Marla and Clara. Come back to my house for a while. You need quiet and familiar company. Clara hesitated. We don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden, Maggie said firmly. Clara let out a shaky breath. Maybe you're right. Of course I'm right, Maggie added gently. Come on. The buggy's just over there. We'll get a taxi, Elsa-May said. Nonsense. There's plenty of room. Jump in. Clara got into the front seat, and Marla climbed in beside her sister, never letting go of her hand. Ettie, Elsa-May, and Snowy sat in the back seat. As Maggie took the reins and urged the horse forward, the buggy swayed gently down the quiet country road. For a time the only sounds were the steady clop of hooves and the rustling of trees. Ettie sat with her hands folded, watching the sisters in front of her. Breaking the silence, Marla said, I think the detective thinks that Walter has been murdered. That's my biggest fear, Clara said. Marla patted her bag. He might want to look at our transactions book to see who Walter has been in contact with. Should I offer the detective to have a look at it? Of course not. Keep that notebook with you at all times, Clara told her. Elsa-May leaned closer to Ettie and whispered, Don't ask her any questions. Ettie narrowed her eyes and whispered back, I'm not stupid. Elsa-May raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. Maggie shot a glance over the back at Ettie. You know, Clara, Ettie here has quite a reputation for finding out things. The local detective even asks for her help sometimes. Clara blinked, her tearful expression softening. Really? Ettie waved a dismissive hand. Oh, Maggie's exaggerating. Marla turned to look at Ettie, with genuine curiosity. Is that true? It's true. I'm not making it up. She's helped the detective more times than I can count, Maggie said. Now it was Elsa-May's turn to speak. Clara, Marla, I know this is hard, but do either of you know if someone would want to hurt Walter? The question hung in the air. Ettie and Elsa-May sat perfectly still, holding their breath as they waited for the answer. I don't know anyone, Marla whispered. Do you, Clara? I don't know. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. I can't think right now. That's all right, Maggie said gently. You don't have to know all the answers today. When they finally came to a stop outside Ettie and Elsa-May's home, the familiar sight of their cozy house brought a brief moment of solace. Maggie gave them a small wave from her seat. I'll stop by soon to check on you both. Ettie and Elsa-May climbed out, their limbs stiff with exhaustion. The quiet crunch of their boots on the garden path was the only sound as they made their way toward the front door. Snowy trotted alongside them, tail wagging, blissfully unaware of the weight they carried. Inside, the sisters dropped into their seats, Elsa-May in her usual chair and Ettie on the couch. Elsa-May clasped her hands together. Ettie, we've been in some predicaments before, but this it's so strange. He had to have been murdered, otherwise, what was he doing hiding in the quilts? I suppose it could have had a heart attack. Ettie nodded, her gaze fixed on the teapot sitting untouched on the table. I can't stop thinking about him, she murmured. Elsa-May leaned back, her brow furrowed. That's what troubles me most. Someone wanted him to be found eventually, just not right away. There's a reason for that, Ettie, and we need to figure out what it is. No, we don't. Let's stay out of things. It's nothing to do with us, and you heard what Kelly said. You have never been good at keeping out of things, but if you think you can do it, then that suits me fine. More time to work on our quilt. Ettie looked down at the half-finished quilt, but all she could think about was Walter. Chapter 6. The following morning, Ettie and Elsa-May sat eating breakfast in their small kitchen. Kelly, the cat, perched on the windowsill, her tail swishing lazily as she watched over the side garden. Ettie stared at her honey-spread toast. How did you sleep? Before Elsa-May could respond, the soft sound of an approaching buggy made both sisters look at each other. Who could that be? Ettie asked. I'll take a look. A few seconds later from the living room, Elsa-May called out, It's Maggie. Ettie moved into the living room and opened the front door. Maggie had pulled up to the front gate, and was helping Clara and Marla Weaver down from the buggy. Clara wore a somber expression while Marla's face was calm, though her eyes flickered with concern. Maggie raised her hand in greeting as she led the sisters up the porch steps. Come on in. It's chilly out here. Clara gave a small smile as she stepped inside. Thank you. Marla followed closely, brushing dust off her shawl. The air's colder than I expected. The warmth of the house enveloped them, as Elsa-May gestured for everyone to sit. Snowy stirred at the sound of visitors and bounded over, wagging his tail enthusiastically. Snowy, behave, Ettie said with a laugh as the dog sniffed at Marla's shoes. Marla knelt down and gave Snowy a gentle scratch behind the ears. He's a sweet one. Clara chuckled softly. You have quite the welcoming committee. We have a cat in the kitchen too. They like to make sure guests feel noticed, Elsa-May said. Would you like tea or coffee? Nothing for us, thank you, Clara replied, sitting gingerly in the armchair. Once everyone was seated, Maggie cleared her throat. We wanted to come by and tell you what Detective Kelly told us this morning. Ettie and Elsa-May both leaned in slightly. Clara took a deep breath. He said it was poison. A heavy silence filled the room. Marla added, they suspect that Walter was poisoned. Elsa-May gasped. Poison? Are they sure? Clara nodded. It's not confirmed yet. The only thing Walter had in his stomach was cake, along with the poison. Eddie's brows furrowed. The cherry cupcakes? Marla shrugged. Maybe. I saw those. They looked delicious. Just as well I didn't have one. Eddie's gaze moved thoughtfully across the room. Elsa-May got right to the point. Do you know anyone who would want Walter dead? I know I asked you that yesterday. I should have asked if you've had time to think about it. Clara shook her head slowly. I've thought about it, and I can't think of anyone. I knew him fairly well. He was a good friend. I'm sure he didn't have enemies. I told the police that too. They don't have any leads yet. Marla added quietly, Clara and I were like family to him. He had no one else. Clara nodded. He had no real family. He was out in the world on his own since he was 12. He used to say we were his sisters. That's a long time to be on his own, Ettie said. Clara dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. He deserved better. Marla reached out and squeezed her sister's hand. We'll organize the funeral. Clara exhaled shakily. Yes. We'll need to make arrangements and pay for it. Maggie nodded in understanding. We'll help however we can. Snowy gave a loud huff and flopped onto the rug dramatically, earning a chuckle from Maggie despite the somber conversation. Your animals really know how to keep you both on your toes. They do, Ettie agreed. She took a deep breath and focused on Clara. I'm sorry to both of you for your loss. Clara gave a small nod. Thank you. She paused. We were supposed to be celebrating, not planning a funeral. Marla's voice was quiet. We'll make sure it's a proper service. Walter deserves that. Clara wiped away a tear and her sister asked, Are you okay? Not really. Clara looked over at Ettie. Can you help find out who killed him? Ettie hesitated, recalling Detective Kelly's words. Elsa-May spoke before Ettie could respond. Of course she will. There's no question about it. Ettie would be happy to help, wouldn't you, Ettie? Ettie nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. We'll do everything we can to find out who's responsible. Clara's face relaxed into a relieved smile. Even if you don't find anything, it means a lot that you care. Maggie rested a hand on Eddie's shoulder. You'll figure this out. Maggie stood and took a step toward the door. We should go. Oh, Ettie, your shoes. Eddie's eyebrows rose. They weren't old, they were new. Sorry I left them in your buggy. With everything that happened, I forgot about them. That's all right. I got them out to clean and saw that the sole came off, so I took them to the bootmaker on High Street. He said they'd be ready for you to collect in a week. That was kind of you. And I have your boots by the door. All polished up. Maggie gave her a nod, turned around, and collected her boots. After Clara and Marla said their goodbyes and the visitors left, Elsa-May looked at Ettie. Why did you agree to help? You heard what Detective Kelly said. You've got a short memory. You volunteered me. Elsa-May shook her head. You could have said no. Well, whatever. I said yes, so we better see what Detective Kelly knows. He won't tell us. No, but he might. Besides, didn't he tell us to be there at 9? Ettie walked over to the door and grabbed her coat. She looked back at Elsa-May. Coming? If I have to. Yes, you do. Ettie looked down at her ankle. As long as my ankle holds out. Elsa-May walked over and looked at her leg. It's fine, Ettie. That's easy for you to say. Let's go. Chapter 7. When they were nearly at the shanty that housed the telephone, a taxi approached. Ettie flagged it down and they climbed in. The ride to the police station was quiet, with Ettie tapping her fingers on the doorframe, her mind racing through what they knew so far, which wasn't much. Maggie's boots, Ettie muttered. Elsa-May stared at her. What? If I hadn't been wearing Maggie's boots, I wouldn't have made that discovery. Elsa-May leaned over and whispered, he still would have been dead. We've already talked about this. Talk about something new for a change. But someone else might have found him. True, and we'll leave it at that. I'm not going to mention how you imagining something wrong with your ankle led to you walking, which led to you wearing Maggie's boots that were 10 sizes too big, which led? Ettie dug her sister in the ribs. For someone who wasn't going to mention something, you're mentioning quite a lot. You started it. Well, I'm finishing it for now. Fine. Elsa-May nodded. You always have to have the last word. It's true. Elsa-May shook her head. At the police station, they informed the young officer at the front desk they were there to see Detective Kelly. He picked up the phone and murmured something. After ending the call, he gestured toward the waiting area. He'll be with you shortly. They didn't wait long before Detective Kelly appeared, his expression as serious as ever. He waved them into his office, where he sat behind a desk cluttered with files and a steaming cup of coffee. Ladies, he greeted. What can I do for you today? He stood up and made an exaggerated look at Ettie's shoes. You've got the right boots on today? I have. Good. He sat back down. You asked us to be here at 9. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry about that. I have a lot of my mind. Now, what do you know about the Weaver sisters? Not much. They are friends of Maggie. Well, Clara and Marla are, but I don't think Maggie has ever met the third sister, Bonnie, Elsa-May said. Did you see anything unusual or out of place yesterday? Ettie and Elsa-May looked at each other, and they both shook their heads. The only thing out of place was the dead man, Ettie said. Elsa-May continued, the day has barely begun. We were looking forward to the demonstration of the dyeing techniques. Not those kind of dyeing techniques that happened to Walter, color dye techniques. But it never happened. Ettie frowned at her sister. That hardly matters now, does it? No, it doesn't matter. I didn't say it did. Ettie immediately leaned closer to the detective. Have you made any progress on Walter's case? Kelly's gaze flicked between them. The coroner's report isn't final yet, but he's 99% sure it was poison. Cyanide, to be exact. Elsa-May's eyes widened. Cyanide? That's horrifying. Yes, it is. And let me remind you both, this is a police investigation. I don't need either of you getting in the way. This has nothing to do with your Amish community. Elsa-May bristled. Clara and Marla used to be Amish. This might have everything to do with the community. Kelly raised an eyebrow. That's interesting. Do you think someone from the Amish community killed Walter? Eddie's voice was sharp. Of course not. Kelly sipped his coffee, his eyes narrowing as he studied them. Then I'll very politely ask you both again to stay out of it. Ettie promised Clara she'd find out who did it. Eddie's mouth fell open as she stared at her sister. It seems my sister has a very loose interpretation of promises, she said. Loose? Elsa-May scoffed. You said of course we'll help. Sounds like a promise to me. Ettie sighed and turned back to Kelly. What I meant, detective, is that we're concerned for Clara and Marla. We're not here to meddle in your investigation. Glad to hear it, Kelly said dryly, dabbing at spilled coffee with a tissue. Because meddling tends to complicate things. Ettie folded her hands in her lap and fixed Kelly with a steady gaze. If we hear or see anything relevant, we'll come straight to you. Kelly leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly. You do that. And I trust you'll remember to let us handle the investigation from here. Elsa-May crossed her arms and muttered, We'll see about that. Kelly didn't miss it. What was that, Mrs. Lutz? Elsa-May's eyes widened innocently. Nothing. Just thinking out loud. Detective Kelly, was there anything else in the coroner's preliminary findings that stood out? Other than the cyanide? We're surmising it was in the cake. That's all he had in his stomach. I won't look at cake the same way again. Elsa-May hung her head. Again, leave the detective work to the professionals. We'll stay out of your way, Ettie said. Kelly didn't look convinced. Good. Now if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. He stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Outside the station, Elsa-May glanced at Ettie. I might have said too much. You think? Ettie snapped, though her tone softened immediately. Let's just focus on what we can do without getting in his way. We have to tread carefully. As they walked toward the taxi stand, Elsa-May spoke again. Do you think he's right? That it has nothing to do with anyone from our community? Ettie shook her head. I don't know. But I'm not ruling anything out yet. Are you hungry? A grin broke out on Elsa-May's face. Always. We didn't even get to finish breakfast this morning. I just happen to know a good coffee shop not far from here. Elsa-May chuckled as she looped her arm through Eddie's. No sharing a cake this time. I'm getting my own. That's what I was hoping. Ettie didn't remind her sister of what she'd said moments ago about cake. Together they walked up the street at a faster pace than usual. Chapter 8. The inviting aroma of coffee and freshly baked goods drew them in. They stood before the glass counter, staring at the array of cakes on display. I'll have the lemon drizzle, Ettie said, her eyes lingering on the golden glaze. Elsa-May pointed to a slice of chocolate cake with thick frosting. And I'll have that one. The server nodded and placed their choices on small plates. With cakes and hot drinks in hand, they found a cozy table by the window. Ettie took a bite of her cake, savoring the tangy sweetness. This is just what I needed. I agree, Elsa-May said, sipping her coffee. She glanced out the window at the bustling street. It's almost too peaceful to think about everything that's happened. Ettie nodded but said nothing. Her mind was still spinning with the case details. As she reached for her napkin, her eyes fell on a folded newspaper lying on the next table. She grabbed it and unfolded it, her curiosity piqued by the bold headline, Quilt Photographer's Shocking Death Rocks Community. Look at this, Ettie said, sliding the paper closer to Elsa-May. Elsa-May leaned in, her brow furrowing as she scanned the article. They've already written about Walter? Seems so. Eddie's finger traced the lines of text as she read aloud. Walter Heiser, renowned quilt photographer and host of the popular YouTube channel Quilt or Quit, was found dead under mysterious circumstances earlier this week. Sources close to the investigation suspect foul play. Elsa-May sighed. It's terrible seeing it in print. Ettie continued reading. Local quilt collector Dolores Harker shared her thoughts, hinting that Heiser's life was more complicated than it seemed. Walter was talented, but there was more to him than just quilts, Harker said cryptically. She also commented on Quilt or Quit, suggesting that it was far from being the best quilting channel on YouTube. Elsa-May sat back, her lips pursed. Dolores Harker? That name sounds familiar. There's a picture of her here. I'm sure I saw her at the quilt fair. Why are they interviewing her? Unless she was the one who contacted them? Could be. I wonder how we can find her. Elsa-May sighed. We could start with the phone book, but remember Kelly told us to be careful. Well, she certainly has opinions. And she's not shy about sharing them. What do you think she meant by there was more to Walter than just quilts? Ettie asked. I don't know, but I thought Clara ran Quilt or Quit. According to this article, it was Walter. Ettie took a sip of coffee. We need to speak with her. If she knew something about Walter's personal life, it could be important. Elsa-May frowned. Or she's just stirring the pot for attention. Some people just do things to have all eyes on them. Maybe. Eddie's gaze returned to the article. But I can't shake the feeling that there's something here. Why bring up the channel at all? It's odd, Elsa-May agreed. You're right. Why take a jab at it? Ettie folded the newspaper and set it aside. We need to talk to Dolores. She might not want to share much, but if we approach her the right way, she might let something slip. And if she doesn't? Elsa-May asked. Ettie smiled faintly. Then we'll keep digging. As they finished their cakes and coffee, Eddie's mind was already racing ahead to their next steps. Dolores Harker had just moved to the top of their list of people to question, and she had no intention of leaving any stone unturned. As they prepared to leave, Elsa-May caught sight of a small flyer pinned to the notice board near the counter. She plucked it off and handed it to Ettie. Looks like there's a quilt auction next week. Think Dolores will be there? Eddie's eyes lit up. If she's as much of a quilting enthusiast as she claims, she wouldn't miss it. But we can't wait that long. Ask the waitress if we can borrow a phone book. Elsa-May pointed to herself. Me? Yes, you. Elsa-May rolled her eyes and got to her feet. I suppose you can't walk to the counter because of your sore ankle. Exactly. Chapter 9. 15 minutes later, Ettie and Elsa-May stood on Dolores Harker's doorstep, a charming but slightly overgrown cottage with ivy climbing the walls. Elsa-May adjusted her shawl nervously as Ettie knocked firmly. After a moment the door opened, revealing a petite woman with sharp eyes and a colorful scarf around her neck. Dolores Harker looked them up and down, her expression wary. Yes? Can I help you? Mrs. Harker? Ettie began. I'm Ettie, and this is my sister Elsa-May. We're very interested in quilts, and we saw your comments in the newspaper about Walter Heiser. Dolores's eyebrows rose. Who gave you my address? Elsa-May stepped in quickly. We found you in the phone book. We didn't have another way to contact you, and we didn't want to miss the chance to speak with someone as knowledgeable about quilting as yourself. Dolores's expression softened slightly, though she remained hesitant. It's a bit strange, you have to admit. It is, Elsa-May admitted with a smile. But we're big fans of your work. You're very well regarded in the quilting world. At the word fans, Dolores brightened visibly. She adjusted her scarf and opened the door wider. Well, I suppose I can spare a few minutes. Come in and I'll put the kettle on. The sisters exchanged a quick glance before stepping inside. Dolores led them to a cozy sitting room filled with quilting supplies. Bolts of fabric were stacked neatly in one corner, while intricate quilts hung on the walls like works of art. The space was warm and inviting, with a faint scent of lavender in the air. Dolores disappeared into the kitchen, and returned with a tray of tea and cupcakes. As she poured, she studied them curiously. So what exactly do you want to know about quilting? Ettie stared at the cupcakes before answering. If this woman had used poisoned cupcakes to kill Walter, maybe. We are interested in quilting. And quilts, Elsa-May added. But we're hoping you could tell us more about Walter. From what we read, it sounds like you knew him well. Yes, fascinating, Elsa-May agreed, sipping her tea. Dolores sighed and set her cup down. We were very good friends once. He was dating Bonnie Weaver, and she was my best friend. Bonnie Weaver? Ettie asked. Is she any relation to? She's Marla and Clara's youngest sister, but they don't get along with Bonnie. Why's that? Elsa-May asked. They accused her of copying everything they did. Clara managed to get Walter away from her with promises of better things. Eddie's mind raced, trying to fit the pieces together. Walter might have an enemy after all, Bonnie. Oh, so Clara and Walter dated? No, nothing like that. She was too good for him, or so she thought. Too good for anyone. That's why she never married. Clara's relationship with him was strictly business. He was a talented photographer, but more than that, he had an eye for detail and a real passion for quilts. It's just a shame how things turned out. What do you mean? Elsa-May asked gently. Dolores hesitated, her fingers brushing the edge of her teacup. I insist you both have a cupcake. A friend of mine makes them and they're so moist with delectable frosting. She placed a cupcake in front of each of them. A brown dog padded in and settled under the coffee table in front of Elsa-May. Nice dog, Ettie said, wondering how to avoid eating the cake. Yes, but don't feed him. He'd eat all day if he could. Ettie nodded. Thank you. We both love cake. Now, Dolores, what do you mean about how things turned out with Walter? Ah, yes. Walter and I used to collaborate on projects. In fact, I came up with the idea for the Quilt or Quit channel. That name was mine. That was before Clara had anything to do with it. Ettie leaned forward. Then she rose slightly and looked out the window. Is that a red cardinal in that tree? Dolores jumped up to look. As she did, Elsa-May fed her cupcake to the dog while Ettie hid hers in her shawl. No. I don't see it. Dolores turned around. Elsa-May chuckled. Don't mind my sister. She's obsessed with birdwatching and sometimes sees things. Dolores sat down. It's the wrong time of year for them too. So you came up with the name for the channel? That's very clever, Elsa-May said, nodding. Yes, such a good name, Ettie said, touching her lips as if brushing off crumbs. Dolores nodded, her expression turning bitter. Yes, but Clara stole it right from under me. We were throwing around names for my channel, and I mentioned it as a joke. She said it was terrible, we all laughed. Next thing I know, she's running with it like it was her idea. Elsa-May frowned. That must have been difficult. It was infuriating, Dolores said sharply. And Walter, well, he sided with her. They became best friends and business partners. I tried to move past it, as did Bonnie, but it always felt like a betrayal. Do you think Clara's success changed Walter? Ettie asked. Dolores shrugged. Success changes everyone, doesn't it? Walter and I drifted apart after that. He became more focused on the channel, and less interested in quilting itself. It was all about views and sponsorships. They tell me that's where the real dollars are. Elsa-May exchanged a glance with Ettie. Do you think there was anyone who might have wanted to hurt Walter because of that? Dolores looked surprised. Hurt him? No, I don't think so. People were upset with him now and then. The quilting world can be surprisingly competitive, but nothing that would lead to, well, what happened? You mentioned in the article there was more to Walter than just quilts, Ettie prompted. What did you mean? Dolores hesitated, her gaze distant. Walter had his secrets. He liked to present himself as this wholesome quilt photographer, but there were sides to him most people didn't see. He got involved in some questionable deals. What kind of deals? Ettie asked steadily. Quilt deals? Or valuable antique quilt deals? Elsa-May suggested. Dolores shook her head. I don't know the details. Just rumors at events. He'd buy rare quilts from people who didn't know their value, then sell them for a fortune. Some people felt cheated. But even then, I can't imagine anyone wanting him dead over it. Ettie nodded slowly, filing away the information. Thank you for telling us. This helps more than you know. Dolores gave a small, reluctant smile. I hope so. Walter may not have been perfect, but he didn't deserve what happened to him. They finished their tea and chatted about quilts before Dolores looked at their empty plates. Ah, you enjoyed the cupcakes? Have another. Oh no, Elsa-May said, shaking her head. I'm on a strict diet, and Ettie gets too jittery with too much sugar. Oh dear. Dolores looked at the tea. I made the tea really sweet. I hope that was all right, Ettie. Ettie held out her hand. No jitters yet. Dolores chuckled. We should leave you now. Thanks for answering our questions and for the delicious cakes. My pleasure. I don't get many visitors. As Dolores walked them to the door, she paused. If you find out anything at all, will you let me know? Ettie met her gaze. Of course. We'll keep you informed. Thank you. And good luck. Something tells me you're going to need it. Outside, Elsa-May turned to her sister. What do you make of all that? Eddie's eyes narrowed thoughtfully as they walked to the road. I think Dolores knows more than she's letting on. And I think it's time we paid Clara another visit. Tell me, Ettie. What are your thoughts? Ettie puffed out a breath. Well, someone could have been angry with him. Maybe someone sold him a quilt for nothing, and Walter knew its value. He could have sold it for a lot of money. I see. He could make people angry that way. Also, a jilted lover would hold a lot of anger. I'm thinking of Bonnie, the third sister. And the other thing we have to consider is, Elsa-May interrupted, is whether Dolores's tea had enough sugar. Because let me tell you, Ettie, it barely passed for sweet. Maybe that's her way of punishing unwanted visitors. And the dog didn't die, so I'm guessing your cupcake wasn't poisoned, so mine must be fine to eat. Ettie got it out of her shawl and held it up. Elsa-May's mouth turned down. We can't risk it. She snatched the cake and threw it under some nearby bushes. Elsa-May. I was going to eat that. If I can't have cake, neither can you. Ettie huffed. Let's walk up to the main road and get a taxi to Maggie's house. Okay. I was thinking too, we have to find out who benefits from Walter's death. Oh, good thinking, Ettie. Maybe he had a will. Correct, and Walter and Clara were business partners. Then Clara might get to keep everything for herself, Ettie nodded. Possibly. The detective once told us that he looks at people closest to the victim first. No, Ettie. I don't think that's right, because Clara and Marla were genuinely upset. Maybe Clara's pretending. I mean, she'd have to if she killed him. It's also possible that Marla knows nothing about Clara's plans. Elsa-May's mouth turned down. Maggie would know. That's what I was thinking. Chapter 10. As soon as they got to Maggie's house, they found out that Clara and Marla were back staying at a local hotel. We've just come from Dolores Harker's house, Elsa-May said at Maggie's. She had some interesting things to say about Walter. Maggie raised an eyebrow. I'll bet she did. That woman always has plenty to say. Ettie recounted their visit, including Dolores's claim about creating Quilt or Quit, and her hints about Walter's questionable dealings. Maggie listened intently, her expression growing serious. I'm not surprised she's still bitter about Quilt or Quit, Maggie said. Dolores holds grudges. But Walter being involved in shady quilt deals. I've heard whispers about that before. You have? Elsa-May leaned forward. From who? Maggie hesitated. Just bits and pieces from quilters at events. Nothing concrete. But there's always been talk that Walter had a knack for finding rare quilts at suspiciously low prices. Some thought he was lucky, others suspected he was persuasive. Persuasive how? Ettie asked. Maggie shrugged. Maybe he convinced sellers their quilts weren't worth much, or maybe he had other methods. I never believed it, but now. She shook her head. It does make you wonder. Ettie nodded thoughtfully. We'll need to dig deeper into his past. Know anyone else who might have had issues with him? Maggie tapped her chin. Not off the top of my head, but I can ask around. The quilting world is small. If there's something to know, someone will talk. We heard about the third sister, Bonnie. Yes. I've never met her. I heard she moved far away. Elsa-May leaned forward. But did you know she was dating Walter and he left her to go into business with Clara? Maggie's eyebrows shot up. No. I never knew that. Ettie smiled, pleased they knew something Maggie didn't. They discussed leads and theories a while longer. As they prepared to leave, Maggie stopped them at the door. Be careful, you two, she warned. If Walter really did have enemies, you don't want to end up on their radar. Ettie smiled. We'll be careful. Thanks, Maggie. By the time they arrived home, it was nearly dark. Ettie pushed open the front door and they froze in shock. Their weeks-long quilt project lay shredded on the floor, its colorful patches scattered everywhere. Oh no. Not the quilt. Elsa-May wailed, rushing to pick up a tattered square. All that work. Who could have done this? They looked at Snowy, resting on his bed in the corner with fabric tangled around his leg. Snowy, what did you do? Ettie asked. Snowy turned his head. Snowy wouldn't do this. He knows better, Elsa-May said. Maybe he got bored. Ettie glanced at her sister. We both know it was Snowy. Elsa-May clutched a piece of the quilt, eyes brimming with tears. I'll start supper. You clean this up. As Elsa-May disappeared into the kitchen, Ettie leaned down and patted Snowy. Good dog, she whispered. I was getting tired of all that sewing anyway. I'll save you a special treat tonight. Snowy thumped his tail. Elsa-May returned, holding a wooden spoon. She froze, eyes narrowing as she saw Ettie stroking Snowy's head. What are you doing? Ettie straightened, trying to look innocent. Just comforting him. He seems upset too. Upset? Elsa-May's voice rose. Ettie Smith, were you just praising him for destroying our quilt? How will he learn to be good? I know it's not right, but perhaps it's your fault. You haven't been walking him as much, and all your attention was on the quilt. Elsa-May's hands went to her hips. You seem pleased about it. That quilt was our winter project. All that work gone. Ettie sighed, shoulders slumping. All right, I confess. I didn't like the project. It was too much work, and honestly, I might not live long enough to finish it. Elsa-May blinked. You didn't like it? Not really, Ettie admitted. All that stitching and squinting over fabric squares, it's just not for me. But I didn't want to disappoint you. Elsa-May glanced at the ruined quilt and sighed. Well, it was a lot of work. But what now? Winter's coming, and we don't have anything cozy like Maggie does. Ettie brightened. I have an idea. How about I buy you a quilt? A nice big one that's already finished. You can choose it yourself. Elsa-May's eyes lit up. You do that? Of course, Ettie said. Consider it my apology for not being as enthusiastic about quilting as you are. Elsa-May's lips curved into a smile. All right, but I get to choose it. No arguing. No arguing. It'll be your quilt. Our quilt, Elsa-May corrected. But if you ever encourage him to destroy anything else, Ettie, I'll think of something. Now that we've solved that, I'll help you with supper. Chapter 11. Ettie woke with a start, an idea crystallizing in her mind so clearly that she wondered why it hadn't occurred to her sooner. By the time she reached the kitchen, Elsa-May was at the table with her early morning tea. Good morning, Elsa-May said cheerfully. You're up early. Ettie didn't bother with pleasantries. I know how we can figure out who might have wanted Walter dead. I thought we were finding out about his will. Yes, that too. Go on. Ettie leaned on the back of a chair. We need to find out Walter's recent transactions. The quilts he purchased, what he paid, and what he expected to sell them for. Elsa-May's eyes widened. The book Marla carries? Ettie nodded. Exactly. If she's Clara's assistant, she must have been Walter's too. That book should have everything we need. Then Clara and Marla both knew about his questionable dealings. That's something we need to find out. Elsa-May's smile faltered. But how do we get a look at it? The auction's next week. We can't wait that long, Ettie said firmly. We'll visit their hotel room. You keep them busy while I check the book. Elsa-May's face lit up, though mischievously. All right, but this feels a little underhanded. Not underhanded. Resourceful. We're doing it for a good cause. The sound of hooves and wheels on gravel drew their attention. Maggie was pulling up alone in her buggy. The sisters exchanged panicked glances. We can't let Maggie know about this, Ettie whispered. Agreed. But she can take us to the hotel, Elsa-May said. We just need an excuse. What will we say? Elsa-May glanced at the untamed garden. Grab some flowers. Eddie's face soured. They're weeds. I haven't had time to maintain the garden with all the enforced quilting. They're wildflowers, Ettie. Elsa-May hurried outside with a basket. When Maggie tied the reins, Elsa-May had returned with a colorful bouquet. We're visiting the hotel. We thought we'd bring these to brighten Clara and Marla's day. Maggie's face softened. That's thoughtful. They've released his body, the funeral's Friday. They'll need cheering up. Hop in. At the hotel, Ettie said, Thank you, Maggie. We'll find our own way home. Nonsense. I'll come up with you. Ettie froze. Oh, Maggie, you don't have to. I'm already here. The clerk gave them room 204 after some hesitation. Clara answered their knock, her face brightening. What a surprise. We brought you flowers, Elsa-May said. Clara stared at the bunch of weeds until Ettie added, special wildflowers that grow here. They might inspire your next quilt. How lovely. Come in. Clara led them into the suite, where Marla sat on the bed with a notebook. How are you both holding up? Ettie asked as they sat. As well as expected, Marla said with a faint smile. Choosing coffins isn't nice. If only we'd known what he wanted. He was a manly man, so we chose black with gold trim, Clara added. Ettie eyed the notebook. She nudged Elsa-May, who sprang into action. Clara, these wildflowers remind me of that field outside the old schoolhouse. Elsa-May launched into memories. When Marla rose to make tea, Ettie covered the notebook with her shawl and discreetly picked it up. Ettie, you should walk, Elsa-May said. Remember your leg? You can't sit long. You're right. Back in a moment. In the lobby, Ettie quickly scanned the book. Her eyes widened at a receipt for Tom Wallace. $500 paid, expected to sell for over $9,000. She found 2 more similar transactions from him. She returned to the room, placing the book back unnoticed. Marla handed her tea, and Clara asked about her leg. It's good if I keep moving. Ettie gave Elsa-May a subtle nod. We should go, Elsa-May said, standing. Thank you for coming, Clara said. I hope you'll all attend the funeral. There won't be many there. We'll be there, Maggie said. Outside, Maggie turned to them. Why do I feel you two were up to something? Ettie forced a laugh. Oh, Maggie, quite the imagination. In the buggy, Elsa-May whispered, Did you get anything useful? Ettie nodded, then asked Maggie, Would you know a Tom Wallace? Yes, the bootmaker fixing your boot. Eddie's mouth fell open. Does he collect quilts? Not that I know of, but he did ask if I had any to sell. I see. Eddie's mind raced. Tom must have been obtaining quilts from Amish folk who didn't know their value. But he didn't know their true worth if Walter could resell them so high. Why do you ask? The name was stuck in my head. You know many people. You saw it on the ticket stub I gave you. Ah, that must be it. Ettie wondered if the bootmaker was the same man from the notebook. Considering his interest in quilts, it had to be. Chapter 12. Once home, Ettie turned to Elsa-May. We need to talk. They settled into their chairs by the fire. I saw something in Walter's notebook, Ettie said. A receipt for Tom Wallace. $500 for a quilt Walter expected to sell for over $9,000. Elsa-May's mouth fell open. $9,000? That's a fortune. Ettie nodded grimly. And there were 2 other similar purchases from Tom Wallace, low payments for high-value quilts. Elsa-May's face lit up with understanding. And when he found out how much he really could have made, he got angry. Angry enough to kill Walter? People have killed for less. Elsa-May turned to her sister. We can't just sit on this. We need to find out more about Tom Wallace. Exactly. And the best way is to pay him a visit, Ettie said. You mean go to his shop? Yes. After all, my boot is supposedly ready. The bootmaker's shop was tucked into a narrow street on the edge of town. The smell of leather and glue wafted out as they entered. Tom Wallace looked up from his workbench. Good afternoon, ladies. How can I help you? I'm Ettie Smith. You're repairing my boot. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Ah, yes. Mrs. Smith. The glue is still drying. It'll need another couple of days. Elsa-May muttered, We could have glued it ourselves. Ettie shot her a warning look. That's fine. We just thought we'd check in. Tom hesitated, then leaned forward. Since you're here, do either of you have any old Amish quilts? Maybe something from childhood. At your age it could be worth quite a bit. Oh, don't talk about quilts. My sister's dog just ripped apart a quilt that we've been working on for weeks. He ripped it to shreds. We are heartbroken over it. Sorry to hear that, he said. The dog is actually our dog, my sister's dog more than mine. I got him for her. Anyway, what makes you ask about quilts? Ettie raised an eyebrow. Quilts like that are becoming rare. Collectors pay well for authentic pieces with history. How much could they be worth? Ettie asked. Tom smiled eagerly. If they're in good condition, I could offer around $100. Maybe more, depending on the pattern and the condition. Only $100? Ettie's lips thinned. I thought collectors paid a lot. They do, but only after authentication and cleaning. That takes work, which the price reflects. We'll think about it, Ettie said diplomatically. Outside, Elsa-May turned sharply. $100 for an antique quilt? Does he think we're fools? He's trying to take advantage, Ettie said. Those quilts are worth far more. And if he's suggesting offering us so little for quilts, he's doing it to others. What's next? We found out he's buying quilts, but not his relationship to Walter. Well, go back and ask him. Ettie swallowed. What if he's the killer? Maybe we should tell Detective Kelly. And explain how you found out about him? About you looking in Marla's notebook? No, I can't do that. Let's just go back and mention Walter. He can't kill us both in broad daylight. He could. But he won't. Let's go. They hesitated at the shop door. You sure about this? Ettie asked. Yes. We need to know what he knows about Walter. Better to find out now. Ettie nodded. All right, but carefully. We don't want to spook him. They pushed the door open, the bell jingling. Tom looked up, surprised to see them return. Chapter 13. Tom looked up as they entered his shop. Back already? We had a few more questions, Ettie said. About the quilts you sold to Walter Heiser. Tom's face froze for a split second before he recovered. Walter Heiser? Yeah, I sold him a few quilts. What about it? Were you aware how much he was making from them? Tom shifted uncomfortably. What do you mean? He was selling them for thousands, Elsa-May said. One quilt you sold him for $500 was expected to fetch over $9,000. Tom's face darkened, his hands gripping the counter edge. I didn't know that. He told me he was a collector, preserving Amish heritage. Didn't you find it odd he'd pay so much for quilts you thought were worth hundreds? Ettie pressed. Tom's jaw tightened. Look, I knew he was turning a profit, but not that much. I was just trying to make a living. People sell things for less than they're worth all the time. Honest living? Offering us $100 for quilts worth thousands? That's business. I take the risk of not selling them. Don't like the price? Don't sell to me. We're not here to sell, Ettie said. Walter is dead, and we're trying to figure out who might have wanted to kill him. Tom's eyes widened. You think I killed him? We're not saying that, Elsa-May said quickly. But if you knew how much he was making, maybe someone else found out and got angry enough to do something drastic. Tom stared at them, his expression unreadable. I had no idea about that money. And I didn't kill him. Sure, I didn't like him, he was smug, thought he was better than everyone, but murder? No. Any recent dealings with him? Anything that might give us a clue? Tom sighed. 2 weeks ago, I sold him a rare pattern from an estate sale. He was excited, said it would be a big sale. The pattern? Elsa-May asked. A Lone Star. Amish made. Beautiful work. Ettie and Elsa-May exchanged looks. Lone Star quilts were highly valued in the quilting world. If Walter expected a significant profit, that could have caused tension. Thank you, Mr. Wallace, Ettie said. We appreciate your time. If you find anything else, let me know. I don't want people thinking I was involved. We'll keep that in mind. Outside, Elsa-May exhaled sharply. Well, that was interesting. If he's telling the truth, he might not have had motive. But if he's lying, then he's playing a dangerous game. Do you believe him? Ettie paused. I'm not sure. But we have more pieces now. Let's get home and go over everything we know. Chapter 14. Later that afternoon, Ettie and Elsa-May visited the quilt shop, finding Maggie, Clara, and Marla browsing fabrics. "What brings you here?" Maggie asked. "Our quilt met an unfortunate end. Snowy decided it was a chew toy," Elsa-May sighed. Clara gasped. "Oh no." "Yes, and instead of sewing another, I thought we'd buy one," Ettie said. Elsa-May wandered the shop, touching fabrics. "Nothing seems right." Marla held up a blue quilt with star patterns. "This one's lovely." "Nice but not quite right." Maggie offered a floral design. "Maybe this style?" Elsa-May studied it. "I guess I'm not ready for a new quilt yet." "Elsa-May, it's just a quilt," Ettie said. "It's not just a quilt. It was our project. I put my heart into those stitches." Maggie chuckled. "That's why we quilt, isn't it? A piece of our heart in every stitch." "You say that, but we know it's work." Ettie crossed her arms. Clara smiled. "You could try something simpler, maybe patchwork?" "I don't want simple. I want special. No expense spared." The shopkeeper approached. "I have new designs that just arrived." She led them to a corner display. Elsa-May lingered on a rose pattern, then sighed. "Beautiful but not the same." "You mean it's not the one you nagged me about for weeks?" Ettie smirked. "You loved working on it." "I admit nothing." Maggie stepped between them. "Maybe you need time. It's hard to replace something you've put effort into." "Sometimes the perfect quilt finds you when you're not looking," Marla added. They left the shop empty-handed. Outside, Maggie suggested, "There's always the next quilting bee." Ettie groaned. "Oh no. Actually, that's perfect." Elsa-May brightened. "Fine," Ettie said. "But Snowy stays far from the fabric." They shared a laugh, minds on both their loss and new possibilities ahead. Chapter 15. The next morning, Ettie and Elsa-May sat at their worn wooden table, papers spread before them. They'd been reviewing their notes about Tom Wallace for nearly an hour, trying to piece together his connection to Walter. A sharp knock at the door made them both jump. Elsa-May rose to answer it, her chair scraping against the floor. "There's a delivery man outside," she called back, puzzlement clear in her voice. "He has something for you, Ettie." "For me?" Ettie raised an eyebrow. "Of course, the one time you get up to answer the door, it's for me." At the door stood a young man in a crisp brown uniform, shifting impatiently from foot to foot. He glanced down at his clipboard, then up at Ettie. "Ettie Smith?" "Yes, that's me." Without ceremony, he thrust a large rectangular package wrapped in brown paper into her arms. Before either sister could ask a question, he turned and hurried down the path. Back in the kitchen, they carefully untied the string holding the package together. As the paper fell away, both sisters gasped. A quilt lay before them, its intricate pattern a masterwork of vibrant colors and impossibly precise stitching. The morning light caught each carefully placed stitch, highlighting the craftsmanship. "It's absolutely lovely," Elsa-May exclaimed, running her fingers over the fabric. "You don't suppose Clara and Marla sent it? They knew about what happened to our quilt." "Or maybe Maggie," Ettie mused, but her brow furrowed as she leaned closer. "Though something's not quite right. Smell it, there's a musty odor, like it's been stored somewhere damp." Ettie carried it to the laundry room to air out, her steps slow and thoughtful. Just as she returned to the kitchen, another knock echoed through the house. This time Detective Kelly stood at their threshold, his expression grave. "Ladies," he said, stepping inside. "I need to ask you both a few questions." They settled into the living room, Elsa-May shooing an overexcited Snowy away. The dog never could contain himself around Kelly. The detective sat stiffly on their couch, while Kelly the cat slept undisturbed at the far end, completely uninterested in their visitor. "What brings you here, Detective?" Elsa-May asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Kelly leaned forward, his weathered face serious. "A valuable antique quilt has been stolen. It's a Lone Star pattern Amish made. Extremely rare." He paused, his next words falling heavy in the quiet room. "I believe whoever has this quilt is also responsible for Walter's murder." Ettie felt ice water run through her veins. From the corner of her eye, she saw Elsa-May's face drain of color. "We'll certainly let you know if we hear anything," Ettie said quickly, perhaps too quickly. "What makes you connect the quilt to Walter's death?" Walter was dealing in high-value quilts, Kelly said, his sharp eyes moving between the sisters. Someone who wanted that quilt badly enough to kill would be trying to hide it now. After Kelly left, Elsa-May turned to Ettie, her face ashen. That quilt in the laundry room, what if it's the one he's looking for? Calm down, Ettie said, though her own heart was racing. We don't know that for certain. But if he finds out we have it? He won't, Ettie cut in firmly. Not until we figure out who sent it and why. They rushed to examine the quilt again, its beauty now taking on a sinister quality. There's no doubt about it, Elsa-May whispered. It's a lone star pattern. Someone's trying to frame us, Ettie. Fortune smiled briefly when Ettie noticed the delivery notice stuck to Snowy's paw. Within minutes they were at the phone shanty, Ettie's fingers trembling slightly as she dialed. Express deliveries, a bored voice answered. I received a package today, Ettie said carefully. I was hoping you could tell me who sent it. The quilt. Yeah, strange case. Someone just left it on our counter yesterday with cash. No name, no return address. Ettie hung up and turned to her sister, her expression grim. They don't know who sent it. What if it's a warning from Walter's killer? Elsa-May's voice quavered. Could be the bootmaker, Ettie said thoughtfully. Maybe he didn't appreciate our questions. Or? Elsa-May offered weakly, perhaps someone kind simply thought we needed a quilt. Ettie's sharp look made Elsa-May reconsider her own words. This is not good. Not good at all. Chapter 16. A thin veil of mist hung over the fields, as Maggie's buggy pulled up in front of Ettie and Elsa-May's house to go to Walter Heiser's funeral. Ettie stepped onto the porch, followed closely by Elsa-May, who clutched a handkerchief in case she got over-emotional. Morning, Maggie greeted softly as the sisters climbed into the buggy. Her usually bright smile was muted today, her eyes holding the same grief they all shared. You all set? As ready as we'll ever be, Elsa-May said with a sigh, smoothing her dark dress. Ettie settled into the seat, her hands folded tightly in her lap, knuckles white with tension. As they neared the small white chapel perched on its slight hill, they could see clusters of attendees gathering by the entrance. The quilting community had turned out in force, many wearing somber colors but carrying small quilted tributes, pins, handkerchiefs, even tiny wall hangings that spoke of Walter's influence on their craft. Here we are, Maggie said as she parked the horse and buggy. There are so many people here, Ettie observed. The chapel's white exterior gleamed despite the gray day, its modest steeple reaching toward the clouds. Inside, warm candlelight softened the stark interior. Rows of wooden pews filled quickly with friends, acquaintances and admirers from the quilting world. Marla Weaver stood near the front, clipboard in hand, guiding people to their seats with practiced efficiency. Her calm demeanor seemed unshaken, though hollow sadness shadowed her eyes. Clara Weaver sat in the front pew, shoulders hunched, her black dress impeccable but her composure fragile. She looked so lost, Elsa-May whispered as they took their seats 3 rows back. She seems that way, Ettie murmured, not entirely convinced that it wasn't an act. The organ's soft strains filled the chapel as the minister stepped forward. His voice carried steady and strong as he spoke of Walter's kindness, his dedication to craft, the lives he touched. We are gathered here today to remember Walter Heiser, Reverend Thompson began, his words carrying the familiar cadence of countless services before. He was a respected business owner, a friend to many, and will be deeply missed. Though I did not know him personally, those who did speak of his dedication to his craft and his generosity of spirit. Throughout the service, people stood to share their memories. Each story painted a picture of a man whose life had touched countless others. As the service concluded, Detective Kelly quietly approached Ettie and Elsa-May, his notepad tucked discreetly in his jacket pocket. Ladies, he said in a low voice, I wanted to update you on the investigation because I can see you're in the thick of things, and that might come in handy. He guided them to a corner of the chapel, away from curious ears. The toxicology report confirmed what I already told you. We didn't find anything in the food from the event. That means he was specifically targeted with the poison. The will? Ettie asked quietly. What Ettie means is who gains from the will. Elsa-May explained. The detective's expression grew thoughtful. Everything goes to Clara and Marla. Equal shares. But here's what's interesting. He changed it just 2 weeks ago. Removed the third sister Bonnie entirely. Previous version had her inheriting a third of his assets. Bonnie. Ettie looked around. I wonder if she's here today. We're looking into the timing. He paused, glancing around before continuing. We don't know who. The who will tell us why, Elsa-May said. And when we know the why, we'll know everything because we already have the where. Ettie held her head with embarrassment. Not the best time to talk about things like this. I'll catch up with you both later. Detective Kelly excused himself as the mourners began filing out. Ettie stared at her sister. Did you have to? What, Ettie? Carry on with the who and the why? It's true. Elsa-May looked around. What happens now? Maggie came up behind them, and had overheard them. The private burial is taking place right now. Only Clara and Marla will be there. The sisters and Maggie walked outside and watched as Clara and Marla climbed into a black car, following the hearse down the winding path to where a fresh grave waited. The rest of the mourners headed toward the community center next door, where the reception would be held. Long tables lined with food stood mostly untouched, the whispers of poison still fresh in everyone's minds. Ettie, Elsa-May, and Maggie walked around filling her plate with food from the buffet. After they finished eating, Marla returned first. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked, the only sign of her internal struggle. Clara arrived shortly after, her eyes red. The private burial had clearly taken its toll, but she carried herself with dignity, accepting condolences with quiet grace. An attractive woman burst through the doors, her eyes dark with fury. That must be Bonnie, Maggie whispered. Her black dress looked expensive and elegant, a sharp contrast to the modest attire of the other mourners. Well, well. Look who's still playing the grieving widow, she sneered at Clara. The room fell silent. Clara stiffened but didn't turn. Bonnie not here. Oh, why not? Bonnie snapped, her voice carrying across the stunned room. You and Marla got everything, didn't you? Walter left me nothing, thanks to you two scheming behind my back. Marla shook her head. This isn't the time or place, Bonnie. You know why Walter made his choice. Do I? Bonnie's voice rose. Funny how you both managed to push me out of his life right before he changed that will. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Almost as convenient as his sudden death. Clara stood so quickly her chair toppled backward. How dare you, she whispered, voice shaking with rage. How dare you come here today of all days? Why not today? Bonnie's lip curled. It's perfect timing, really. Everyone here to witness the grand performance. Tell me, Clara, did you think no one would ask questions? Did you think you and Marla could just slide right into ownership without anyone wondering? You left Bonnie, Marla cut in, her calm facade cracking. You left because he wouldn't sell. Because he cared more about me and Clara than profit margins. Believe what you want. Bonnie's gaze swept the room, taking in the shocked faces. But don't think for a second I'm going away quietly. Some things can't be buried as easily as Walter. Her eyes locked onto the tea service Marla had been arranging. I'd be careful with that tea, by the way. Seems like such an innocent thing, doesn't it? Until it isn't. With that threat hanging in the air, she stormed out, leaving stunned silence in her wake. Through the windows they could see her climb into an expensive car, its engine roaring to life. Ettie caught Elsa-May's eye across the room. Chapter 17. The morning after the funeral, Ettie and Elsa-May stood in their living room, staring at the quilt draped over the chair like it was a ticking time bomb. We need to get rid of it, Ettie said firmly, crossing her arms. We can't have this quilt in our house any longer. What if Kelly finds out? What if someone saw it being delivered? What if they're watching us right now? Elsa-May nodded, her nose wrinkling as she caught another whiff of the musty fabric. And it stinks. I can't believe we haven't caught some terrible mildew disease from having it here. It smells like it's been stored in a damp basement for months. Let's wrap it up and take it to where the quilt auction will be held. That way someone will find it, and hopefully hand it over to the police. We'll be free of it. Good idea. Elsa-May retrieved brown paper and tape from the kitchen drawer, and they bundled the quilt tightly, working in tense silence. We should tie it with string too, she murmured, eyeing the tape dubiously. Better safe than sorry. Tape will hold fine, Ettie replied, waving a dismissive hand. The sooner we get rid of this thing, the better. We don't have time to hunt for string. After wrapping the quilt to the best of their ability, the sisters slipped out the door and started the walk to the phone shanty to call for a taxi. They moved quickly through the crisp morning air, both hoping no one would notice the large parcel they were carrying. The streets were eerily quiet, with only the occasional bird call breaking the silence. The wind picked up, tugging at Elsa-May's prayer cap, and she tightened the knot under her chin with trembling fingers. Are we doing the right thing? I mean, shouldn't we just tell Detective Kelly? He's been fair with us so far. And risk him thinking we stole it and we're the murderers? Absolutely not, Ettie replied without missing a step. We'll leave it anonymously, and let someone else deal with it. The less we're involved, the better. They had just reached the phone shanty, its weathered wood offering little comfort, when the unmistakable sound of a car engine rumbled behind them. The sisters froze in place as Detective Kelly's car pulled up beside them. Ettie shot Elsa-May a panicked look, her face draining of color. Act natural, she hissed through clenched teeth. Elsa-May, wide-eyed and pale, shuffled to stand in front of the large parcel they had just placed on the ground. Her attempt at casualness made her look more suspicious than ever. Kelly stepped out of the car, his arms crossed over his chest, eyes squinting against the morning sun. His police badge caught the light, a silent reminder of their predicament. Ladies, what are you up to? Nothing. Elsa-May blurted out, her voice pitched too high, echoing in the quiet street. Ettie nodded, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. Just out for a walk. Lovely morning for it, isn't it? Kelly's sharp eyes flickered to Elsa-May's awkward stance, then to the poorly concealed package behind her. Why do you both look guilty? In my experience, innocent people don't usually look like they're about to bolt. Guilty? Us. Don't be ridiculous, Ettie said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. Why would we be guilty? We're just two sisters enjoying a morning walk. He pointed to the package, his gesture deliberate and knowing. What's in the bag? Elsa-May fidgeted with her bonnet strings. Oh, just some old thing we're giving away. Spring cleaning, you know how it is. Kelly stepped closer, his boots crunching on the gravel. Before either sister could react, the tape gave way with an ominous rip, and the quilt spilled out onto the ground in a colorful heap, its patterns seeming to glow in the morning light. Elsa-May turned to Ettie, exasperated. I told you to tie it with string. Kelly knelt down, lifting the edge of the quilt carefully with gloved hands. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes hardened. Is that the stolen quilt? The one everyone's been talking about? Ettie swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. I don't know what you're talking about, Detective. There are lots of quilts in this town. Kelly gave her a long, hard stare that made her want to confess to crimes she hadn't even committed. You mean to tell me you two didn't know there's a missing quilt that looks exactly like this one? The one that might be connected to Walter's death? Elsa-May cleared her throat nervously, her fingers twisting in her skirt. We all found it. We were just trying to return it anonymously. You know, do the right thing. Be good citizens. Kelly stood, brushing dust from his knees, shaking his head. Anonymous drop-offs don't usually include sneaky walks and guilty expressions, ladies. You should have come straight to me. You know better than this. Ettie folded her arms, finding some courage in her indignation. And have you thinking we had something to do with Walter's murder? No thank you. Kelly sighed. So where did you find it? And don't tell me it just appeared out of thin air. Ettie hesitated, weighing her words carefully. It was left at our house. Just appeared on our doorstep like some kind of twisted gift. Left? By who? Elsa-May shrugged dramatically. We don't know. It was just there. We thought it might be safer to get rid of it before anyone got the wrong idea. You know how people talk in this town. Kelly studied them both, his jaw tight with suspicion. Let me guess, no note, no name, just a mysterious quilt appearing out of nowhere. That seems awfully convenient. Ettie nodded, gaining confidence. That's right. Well, there is a bit more to the story. He frowned. Go on. We have the name of the delivery company that brought it to us, but when we called, they said the quilt was left there with our delivery address and some cash. The company had to pack it too. They didn't see anyone. Very mysterious, isn't it? Kelly rubbed his temples, looking suddenly tired. You two have a knack for finding yourselves in the middle of things, don't you? Like moths to a flame. Elsa-May gave a small smile. It's not on purpose. Trouble just seems to find us. Kelly sighed deeply, picking up the quilt. I'll take it from here. And if you find anything else mysterious landing on your doorstep, come to me first. Ettie nodded slowly, a new worry creasing her brow. Understood, but you said the person who had the stolen quilt might be the killer. So could we be in danger? Should we be worried? Kelly's phone rang, interrupting the moment. He walked a few steps away, speaking in low tones, then turned back to them with an odd expression. A funny thing just happened. The stolen quilt has turned up at the station. Elsa-May frowned, her eyes darting between Kelly and the quilt in his hands. But isn't this the stolen quilt? Kelly rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I'm not sure. I'll have to have someone take a look at them both. This case just got more complicated. Who? Ettie asked, leaning forward eagerly. Who could tell them apart? I'm not sure at this stage. We can't use anyone involved in the case, obviously. We'll find someone and get to the bottom of it. Kelly walked away, carefully placed the quilt in his trunk, and drove off, leaving a trail of questions in his wake. That was close, Elsa-May breathed, sagging against the phone shanty. Ettie muttered, too close. I hope this quilt really does hold the answers he's looking for. But which quilt is the real one? They watched as Kelly's car disappeared around the corner, the mystery of the quilt safely in his possession, leaving the sisters standing in the road, relieved but also curious about which quilt was which. Chapter 18. On that same afternoon, Detective Kelly arrived early with a thick manila folder tucked under his arm. They ushered him over to the couch. I've got news. We examined both quilts, and you won't believe what we found. Yours had a small Made in China tag sewn into the seam. The other quilt is authentic, but here's the thing. Aside from that tag, they're identical. Stitch for stitch. Elsa-May's jaw dropped, her half-eaten toast forgotten. Identical. But how is that possible? Those patterns are incredibly complex. Kelly shrugged and sat in their armchair. That's what I want to know. Whoever made your quilt had to have access to the original. It's not just similar, it's an exact replica down to the tiniest imperfection. Even the expert we brought in was impressed. Ettie paced the room, her mind raced through possibilities, each more unlikely than the last. So you're saying someone copied Walter's quilt? But why? What could they possibly gain from that? How did you know the stolen quilt was Walter's? The detective eyed Ettie suspiciously. I just assumed it was, unless someone said something. I'm not sure, I could have overheard something. So what's going on? Ettie asked. That's the million-dollar question, Kelly replied, pulling out several photographs from his folder. And here's where it gets even stranger. Your quilt's fabric is new, but the design is an exact match down to the tiniest detail. We suspect the original was used as a pattern, possibly photographed or traced somehow. The craftsmanship is extraordinary, even if it is a counterfeit. Elsa-May folded her arms, a deep frown creasing her forehead as she leaned against the kitchen doorframe. So someone made a fake and then sent it to us? What does it mean? Are they trying to frame us for something? Kelly sighed, rubbing his temples. I don't know yet, but we're getting somewhere. Do you have any idea who could make something this exact? The images showed the two quilts side by side, and true to his word, they were indistinguishable. Every color, every pattern, every stitch seemed to mirror its counterpart perfectly. Ettie and Elsa-May stared at the pictures, their heads close together as they examined the details. Suddenly Elsa-May snapped her fingers, making both Kelly and Ettie start. Dolores Harker. She mentioned knowing a lot about old quilts and patterns. Maybe she knows something about this. Ettie hesitated. It's worth checking into. But why send it to us? What are they hoping we'd do with it? We're not exactly known for keeping quiet about things. That's exactly what concerns me, Kelly said, gathering the photos back into his folder. If someone wanted to frame you, why not send the real one? Why go to the trouble of creating such a perfect copy? It doesn't make sense. Elsa-May's eyes widened as a thought struck her. Maybe they were testing something. Or trying to scare us off. Like a warning of some kind? Kelly rubbed his chin thoughtfully, leaving a smudge of ink from his morning paperwork. I don't know why. And until I do, I suggest you two keep a low profile. I mean it this time. Ettie groaned, sinking into her favorite chair. That's easier said than done around here. Trouble seems to find us whether we're looking for it or not. After Kelly left, taking his folder of photographs with him, Elsa-May sank onto the couch, her mind racing. Ettie, she said slowly, what if Walter found out someone was making fake quilts and was about to expose them? That could be a motive for murder. And whoever sent it to us must think we're nosy enough to figure it out. They know our reputation for sticking our noses where they don't belong. We've solved things before, Elsa-May reminded her. This seems different. Elsa-May groaned, pressing her hands to her temples. We need to talk to Dolores. If anyone knows about copying quilt patterns, it's her. She's been in the business longer than anyone else in town. Ettie sighed, finally stopping her pacing to look out the window. A few early leaves skittered across their front walk, reminding them of the changing seasons. Fine, but we're not letting her know how much we know. Just casual conversation. We don't want to spook her if she is involved. Agreed. Let's go now. Wait, Ettie held up a hand. Maybe we should talk with her at the auction instead. More witnesses that way and it won't look like we're investigating, and she can't force us to eat cupcakes. Good thinking. Elsa-May stood, smoothing her skirt. We can watch her reaction when we give a hint of what we know. Chapter 19. The community center buzzed with excitement as quilters and collectors gathered for the annual auction. Ettie and Elsa-May positioned themselves near the refreshment table, strategically placed to observe both the quilts and their fellow attendees. The luncheon portion of the event was in full swing, with plates of finger sandwiches and cookies circulating among the crowd. Dolores hasn't taken her eyes off Clara since we arrived, Elsa-May whispered, pretending to adjust a napkin. Ettie nodded subtly. And Clara knows it. Look how tense she is. The tension finally broke when Dolores approached Clara's table, her voice carrying across the room. I suppose you think you're quite clever, she said, loud enough to draw attention. Taking over Walter's business so smoothly. Clara's shoulders stiffened. I don't know what you're implying, Dolores, but this isn't the time or place. Oh, isn't it? Dolores's voice dripped with disdain. When is the right time to discuss your unusual practices? The way you've been giving false information and selling subpar goods at premium prices? The room fell silent as other attendees turned to watch the confrontation. Clara's face flushed red, her hands trembling as she set down her teacup. Marla appeared as if summoned, stepping between the two women with practiced ease. Now, she said, her voice warm and reasonable. Let's remember why we're here today. The auction benefits the Children's Hospital after all. She turned to address the room with a bright smile. Speaking of which, has everyone seen the lovely donation from the Miller family? Such exquisite work on that double wedding ring pattern. The tension dissipated as Marla guided conversations toward safer topics, her diplomatic skills on full display. People gradually returned to their lunch, though whispers continued to circulate. She's good, Ettie murmured to Elsa-May. Almost too good at smoothing things over. Yes. She'd be good to have as a sister, Elsa-May said before munching on a bite-sized sandwich. Then Bonnie swept into the room, fashionably late and dressed in an outfit that probably cost more than most of the quilts on display. She made her way to the registration desk, drawing every eye in the room. Well, isn't this quaint? She announced to no one in particular, her voice carrying. Let's see what treasures we have today. As the auction began, Bonnie made her presence felt. She bid aggressively on every high-end piece, driving up prices and frustrating other collectors. Her paddle stayed raised longer than necessary, her smile growing with each winning bid. She's showing off, Elsa-May observed. But why? I never knew she cared about quilts like her sisters do. Maybe that's the point, Ettie replied thoughtfully. She's getting under their skin. Notice she's not buying anything they're selling. Ah, good spotting. As the event wound down and people began to leave, Ettie spotted Bonnie alone near the coat check. She squeezed Elsa-May's arm and made her way over. "Quite a successful evening for you," Ettie said casually, pretending to search for her own coat. Bonnie's lips curved into a smirk. "I know quality when I see it." "Do you?" Ettie asked mildly. "I've been wondering about that. What do you know about quilts from China?" The smirk faltered for a fraction of a second. "China? Why would I know anything about that?" "Just curious. There seem to be a lot of reproduction quilts circulating lately. Very good ones, almost impossible to tell from the originals. If someone doesn't forget to remove the Made in China label." Bonnie's expression sharpened with interest. "I believe anything is possible." "Anything, quilts from China maybe." "What makes you say that?" "The market for authentic antique quilts is huge. Collectors will pay thousands for the right piece. If someone found a way to make perfect copies." She trailed off, then shrugged. "It's just a theory." "Did Walter ever mention anything about fakes to you?" "Don't ask me. I haven't spoken to him in a long time." "Ask those two. They're the ones who were jostling for his attention." She nodded toward her sisters. Ettie looked over at Clara and Marla. "They both liked him?" "That's what I'm guessing." "Bonnie, I'll be perfectly blunt. Do you know or have any idea who could have killed him?" "No, but maybe he found out something he shouldn't have." "And someone killed him to keep it quiet?" Bonnie's eyes glittered. "In my experience, where there's money, there's motive. And there's a lot of money in quilts these days. Just look how much I spent tonight." "Why did you spend so much?" Ettie asked directly. "Maybe I need some quilts in my house. Or maybe I enjoy making Clara and Marla squirm." As Bonnie walked out of the community center, Elsa-May joined her sister. "Well, she knows something," Ettie said slowly. "But I'm not sure what. Why would someone send us that fake quilt? What were they trying to tell us? Or warn us about?" Elsa-May added quietly. She looked around. "We need to speak to Dolores Harper. I can't see her anywhere." After looking around for Dolores for half an hour, they decided she must have left. The opportunity to speak with her was gone. They gathered their things, minds spinning with new possibilities. The community center emptied around them, the remaining quilts carefully packed away for another day. As they walked home in the gathering dusk, both sisters felt the weight of secrets yet to be uncovered. Chapter 20. By the time Ettie and Elsa-May arrived home, it was nearly dark. Maggie waved as she guided her buggy away, leaving the sisters at the gate. When they entered the house, Kelly the cat watched them from the top of the couch while Snowy bounded to greet them. "Well, at least someone's happy we're home," Elsa-May said, patting Snowy's head. Ettie rubbed her ankle as they made their way inside. "I feel like we've been gone for days." "We've barely sat still since Walter's funeral," Ettie said, sinking into her favorite chair. "I never thought investigating quilts would feel like running a marathon." Elsa-May settled into the rocker across from her. "I think my feet have aged faster than the rest of me. And my left ankle is still puffy." "I didn't know there was so much interest in quilts," Ettie said thoughtfully. "Or that people could be so intense about them." Elsa-May chuckled. "You'd think they'd be more excited about new quilts, the ones fresh off the sewing machine." Ettie nodded. "Exactly. All those bright fabrics, untouched stitches, you'd think those would be more appealing. But you have to understand, Ettie. Some things gain value as they age. Like fine cheese or us." Ettie smiled. "You've always had a way with words." "It's true. Old quilts have stories in every stitch. New ones are pretty, but they haven't lived through anything yet." "I suppose." Elsa-May nodded. "And perhaps some people, like Walter, aren't just interested in the beauty of the quilt. They're interested in what it represents. Ownership. Prestige. Prestige or secrets? Desperation can make people do terrible things." "But murder?" Ettie asked. They sat in silence, watching the fire's flickering light cast shadows on the walls. "Do you think Clara and Marla are holding up?" Ettie asked softly. "Marla seems strong, steady as a rock. But Clara appears fragile underneath all that composure." They've lost someone important, Ettie murmured. Walter was more than a photographer to them, don't forget. He was Clara's business partner. Ettie glanced at the quilt again. I keep thinking about what Bonnie said. If Walter had uncovered a secret, how far would someone go to keep it hidden? For all we know, he could have been planning to expose some quilt wrongdoing on his channel. You think it could have been something more than forgery? Maybe. Or maybe it was something more personal, something someone couldn't risk being exposed. If Walter had proof of something, it had to be significant and with high-stakes money attached. We should find out if anyone else noticed anything strange at the show before the murder, Ettie said. Someone might have seen something without realizing it. One thing's for sure, we're in deeper than I thought we'd be. Elsa-May smiled. When are we not? Tomorrow, Ettie said finally. We'll pick up where we left off. The sisters headed to their bedrooms. Chapter 21. Ettie and Elsa-May were finishing breakfast when there was a sharp knock at the door. Elsa-May raised her eyebrows. Sounds like Detective Kelly. Agreed. No one knocks as loud as that. They both walked to the door. When they opened it, they saw they were right. Good morning, ladies. I figured I'd find you here. Well, this is where we usually are at this time of the morning, Ettie said as both sisters stood back to let him in. Take a seat, Detective. Would you like some coffee? Elsa-May offered. No, thank you. I'll get straight to the point. He sat down and then looked between the sisters. I want you to stay safe. The more I uncover, the more I realize this is a larger operation than just a single murder. We know, Elsa-May said quietly. The person who killed Walter must have been at the quilt show, Kelly continued. They had to be there to make sure Walter ate that poison cake. Not a scrap of food at the event showed any traces of poison, and we know he consumed a cupcake with the exact same content as the plate of cupcakes that we confiscated. So there you have it. You're saying the killer stayed close to watch it happen, Ettie said. Yes, and someone handed the cupcake to him. They had to make sure he got the one cupcake that was poisoned. I wanted to give you that information before you got yourselves deeper into this. Kelly stood. I have a team working on it, but you need to stay out of it. And that's not a suggestion. He stood, gave them a nod and headed to the door. Ettie sat up straight in her chair. What if Bonnie killed Walter before she found out he wasn't leaving her anything in the will? Elsa-May slowly nodded. Or what if she knew she'd been cut out and she was furious? Think about it. She showed up at the funeral already angry about the inheritance. What if she knew beforehand? I wonder if Detective Kelly is looking into her. Ettie frowned. Oh, I should have asked him when he was here. You didn't think of it then? I didn't think of it until just now. A knock at the door interrupted them. That'll be the detective back again. Ettie got up to open the door and saw Maggie standing there, her usually cheerful face drawn with concern. I just spoke with Clara, Maggie said, moving through the doorway and then sat in a chair. She and Marla are heading back to Cedar Grove. They've asked me to come stay with them, help them sort through Walter's things. I don't like staying with people, so I said I'd go, but I'd find my own accommodation close by. They gave me the name of a B&B. Ettie exchanged a look with her sister. When are they going? Tomorrow morning. They're not waiting around. I didn't realize they lived as close as Cedar Grove. Where does Bonnie live? Just the next street over from them, Maggie replied. Though they never talk with her if they run into her anywhere. I just found all this out today. Elsa-May sat back. You know, Ettie, we're due for a vacation ourselves. All this drama, maybe we need a change of scenery too. Maggie brightened. Why don't you come with me? We could share the B&B. It's big enough. Ettie hesitated. We couldn't leave the animals. Bring them. The B&B allows pets. The owner has 3 cats herself, and there's plenty of space for Snowy. The sisters exchanged a meaningful look. It would put us closer to Clara and Marla, Ettie said slowly. We might learn something about Bonnie, Elsa-May finished. You'd be helping me too, Maggie added. Clara and Marla could use more friendly faces around. This whole situation has them rattled. What do you want to learn about Bonnie? We're wondering if she might have done something to Walter. She sure was angry. I'm not sure. She loved him once, but I've heard it says there's a fine line between love and hate. When would you want to leave? Elsa-May asked. I'm heading out tomorrow afternoon. Clara and Marla will have gone ahead in the morning. The B&B has plenty of rooms. I already asked just in case. You knew we'd want to come with you? Ettie smiled. I hoped you both would come with me. After Maggie left, the sisters began packing, their minds racing with possibilities. A trip to Cedar Grove would give them a chance to learn more about Bonnie. I'm excited for a change of scene. We haven't been anywhere in ages, Ettie said. Chapter 22. The hired car pulled away from Ettie and Elsa-May's house, Snowy settling between their feet while Kelly the cat perched between luggage. Maggie turned around from the front passenger seat, her cheerful face a welcome sight to the sisters. Just like a proper holiday, she beamed. Though I never thought I'd be traveling with a cat. Kelly meowed as if in response, then proceeded to wash her paw with elaborate dignity. You know, Maggie said thoughtfully watching Kelly, my mother had 3 sisters and she always said sisters were like cats, sometimes they cuddle, sometimes they hiss, but in the evening they always huddle together. Snowy chose that moment to attempt climbing onto Eddie's lap, despite his considerable size. Down boy, she laughed just as Kelly gave him a warning swat. Your mother was right about sisters, Elsa-May said, helping Ettie redirect Snowy. One minute you're fighting, the next you're defending each other. Right, Ettie? If you say so. Kelly, apparently satisfied with Snowy's chastisement, began methodically inspecting each piece of luggage, as if conducting an audit. Like Clara and Marla? Maggie asked softly. And Bonnie, Ettie added. 3 sisters, each thinking they're protecting the family in their own way. Snowy, having given up on lap-sitting, flopped dramatically across their feet with a heavy sigh. A sister can be closer than anyone, Maggie observed, or a worse enemy than any stranger. They know all your weak spots. It's true, Elsa-May added, nudging Ettie playfully. Kelly, having completed her luggage inspection, decided Maggie's headrest was the perfect perch for observing the passing landscape. Maybe that's what went wrong with them, Elsa-May mused. Too many secrets between sisters. Too many unspoken grievances. Do you remember when we didn't speak for a week over that cat that you insisted was yours, only to find out a week later that it was mine? Ettie asked. Elsa-May laughed. How could I forget? You keep bringing that subject up even though it happened over 60 years ago. Snowy's ears perked up at something outside, and he pressed his nose against the window, fogging the glass. Sometimes loving your sister means telling her when she's wrong. Kelly abandoned her perch to investigate Snowy's interest, stepping daintily across laps to reach the window. Finding nothing worthy of her attention, she settled into Elsa-May's lap with a dismissive tail flick. Even though I don't have sisters myself, Maggie said, watching Kelly's performance, I've seen how that bond never really goes away. It just gets complicated. Like Kelly and Snowy, Ettie laughed as the dog tried to rest his head on Elsa-May's knee, earning another warning look from the cat. They've got their own kind of complicated relationship. Exactly, Maggie smiled. They act like rivals but still care about each other. Just yesterday I saw Kelly sleeping next to Snowy during his afternoon nap. They used to do that all the time when they were younger, but not so much anymore. Don't tell Kelly we noticed, Elsa-May whispered conspiratorially. She has a reputation to maintain. I wonder if that's how it was with Clara, Marla and Bonnie, Ettie said softly. Before everything went wrong. Did they have moments of peace between the arguments? Kelly, as if sensing the mood shift, stood and walked across their laps again, settling this time between the sisters. Snowy rested his chin on Eddie's knee, his brown eyes watching the cat's movement. Well, Maggie said brightly, I may not have sisters, but I'm grateful to have friends like you two. And your 4-legged family members. Even when Kelly sheds on your best dress? Ettie teased. Even then, Maggie laughed. Though I could do with less white fur on black fabric. The car continued toward Cedar Grove. Chapter 23. The Cedar Grove B&B proved to be everything Maggie had promised. Their rooms overlooked a well-tended garden, and the owner, Mrs. Winters, had welcomed Kelly the cat with treats and Snowy with a handmade bandana. "Your pets can roam freely," Mrs. Winters assured them. "Most of our guests bring animals. Just keep Snowy from digging in my herb garden." After settling in and unpacking, Ettie found a note slipped under their door. "Clara and Marla want us for supper," she read. "Tonight at 7. "Already?" Elsa-May checked her watch. "That gives us 2 hours to freshen up." They arrived at Clara's house precisely at 7. The Victorian-style home sat back from the road, its wraparound porch dotted with wooden rocking chairs. Clara opened the door before they could knock. "Thank you for coming," she said, ushering them inside. Her smile seemed forced, her movements jittery. "We've got someone we'd like you to meet." In the living room, Marla sat in an armchair, while a man Ettie recognized immediately stood examining family photographs on the mantel. "Dave Dublin?" Ettie couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. Dave turned, camera hanging around his neck like always. "Hello, ladies. Do I know you?" Ettie remembered him from the quilt show. Clara had used the word pest to describe him. "We saw you at the quilt show, the one with Walter, where he, unfortunately died." "Dave's helping us document Walter's collection," Clara explained, not quite meeting their eyes. "For insurance purposes. And artistic merit," Dave added quickly. "Walter's work deserves proper documentation. I only wish I could have worked with him before he died." Throughout dinner, Ettie watched Dave. He spoke enthusiastically about photography techniques, about preserving quilting history, about his plans for a book on traditional crafts. But something felt off. "How long have you been interested in quilts, Dave?" Ettie asked casually, passing the bread basket. "Oh, years. But Walter never gave me much chance to photograph his collection." A shadow crossed his face. "Always too busy," he said. "And now you have full access," Elsa-May observed. "Yes, well," Clara cut in, "we need proper documentation. Dave's very qualified to take the photos." Eddie's mind raced. Had Dave killed Walter to get this opportunity? The timing was suspicious, going from unwanted pest to trusted photographer. Or was there more? A photographer would know how to document patterns, create perfect copies. "Will you be photographing everything?" Ettie asked. "Every quilt, every pattern." Dave's enthusiasm seemed genuine, but there was something hungry in his eyes. "It's a tremendous opportunity." "I'm sure it is," Ettie murmured. After dinner, as they gathered in the living room for hot tea, Ettie noticed how Dave's camera never left his side. He kept touching it, adjusting the strap like a nervous tick. Elsa-May must have noticed it too, because she said, "Dave, I noticed at the quilt show the other day that the detective took the camera off you. So you've got it back all right?" "I got it back all right, but all the photos were missing. So if I had accidentally photographed something, they didn't tell me." "How do you organize the photographs?" Maggie asked him. "By pattern? Date?" "Digital files are wonderful," Dave replied. "You can catalog them any way you like. I keep multiple copies, of course. Some go to my personal archive, some to clients." Eddie's ears pricked up. "Personal archive?" "For reference," Dave said quickly. "Research purposes." "Of course." Marla smiled. The evening wore on, conversation drifting between safe topics: the weather, the garden, Mrs. Winters' B&B. But Ettie couldn't shake her unease about Dave's presence, and how quickly Clara had welcomed him. As they prepared to leave, Dave pulled out his camera. "Let me get a picture of everyone." Clara flinched just slightly, but Ettie caught it. "Maybe another time," Marla said smoothly. "It's getting late." Outside, the evening air carried the scent of approaching rain. Ettie, Clara, and Elsa-May walked back to the B&B in thoughtful silence. "Well?" Elsa-May finally asked. "Dave Dublin with full access to Walter's collection." Ettie shook her head. The same Dave that Clara practically banned from the quilt show. She wasn't happy that he was there, and she called him a pest. "Yes, I noticed that too," Maggie commented. "The same Dave who kept trying to photograph the quilts." "Exactly. And now he's got what he wanted, after Walter's death." They reached the B&B's porch, where Mrs. Winters had left the lights on. Kelly watched their return from the window, while Snowy's greeting bark echoed from inside. You think he could have killed Walter? Elsa-May asked quietly. I think it's worth considering. He wanted something Walter wouldn't give him. Now he has it. But what about the fake quilt someone sent you? How would that connect? Maggie asked. Ettie paused with her hand on the door. What if the photographs weren't just for documentation? What if they were patterns, templates for copies? He has the skills, the equipment. And now he has access to every quilt in Walter's collection, Elsa-May said. Mrs. Winters had left a plate of cookies and a note about breakfast times. We should warn Clara and Marla, Maggie said, scratching Kelly's ears. Would they listen? They hired him. Maybe they didn't have a choice, Elsa-May suggested. Did you see how nervous Clara was? Ettie sat heavily in the window seat. Tomorrow we should do some digging. Find out more about Dave Dublin's other clients. His personal archive. And his connection to Bonnie? Elsa-May added. He must know her if he was always hanging around and being a pest. Maggie went to bed early, and outside, the promised rain began to fall, drumming softly against the B&B's roof. Kelly sat on Eddie's lap while Snowy settled at their feet. One thing's certain, Ettie said. Dave Dublin is either very lucky to get this opportunity, or he made his own luck, Elsa-May finished grimly. The Deadly Way. Chapter 24. The following morning, Maggie was too tired to leave her bed, and said she would stay and play with the animals. Not wanting to waste time, Ettie and Elsa-May headed to Cedar Grove's local library, where the librarian, Miss Phillips, proved surprisingly knowledgeable about Dave Dublin. Oh yes, he's done photography for several estates, she said, pulling out a folder. Started about 5 years ago, specializing in antiques and collectibles. That's very interesting, antiques, collectibles, and things of value. Any quilt collections? Ettie asked. Quite a few, actually. Miss Phillips adjusted her glasses. The Morrison estate, the Blackwood collection, and most recently the Henderson quilts. What happened to those collections? Elsa-May inquired. Miss Phillips frowned. Funny you should ask. The Morrison pieces went to auction. Fetched remarkable prices. Then 6 months later, similar quilts started appearing in other auctions. Caused quite a stir, questions about the Morrison quilt's authenticity. And the Blackwood collection? Ettie asked. Stolen. Every piece photographed disappeared 3 weeks after Dave finished his documentation. What a coincidence, Elsa-May said. Miss Phillips, catching on to Elsa-May's meaning, lowered her voice. Nothing was ever proven. No one was even suspicious. I never said anything, but I always wondered if something was going on with him. It seems you do too. We're just asking questions. We had a forged quilt problem back home where we live, and we're just looking into things. Miss Phillips nodded. I'll help you in any way I can. Thank you very much, you've been a great help already. Outside the library, Ettie pulled out her notebook. 3 collections, all photographed by Dave. All followed by either forgeries or theft. And now he's photographing Walter's collection, Elsa-May added. What if that gets stolen too? Well, perhaps then the police will look into him. Their next stop was the Cedar Grove Gazette's archives. The microfiche revealed several articles about Dave Dublin's photography exhibitions, each featuring antique textiles. Look at this, Ettie pointed. 2 years ago, Dave held an exhibition called Lost Treasures Found. It featured photographs of quilts that had been out of public view for decades. Or copies of them, Elsa-May suggested. A quick call to Detective Kelly provided another piece of the puzzle. Dave Dublin? Kelly's voice crackled over the phone. When I took his camera, we did a search on his name. We looked into him after the Henderson theft. Nothing stuck, but his alibi was shaky. He was photographing another collection 2 towns over when the theft occurred. Where are you calling from? He asked. Elsa-May filled him in with what they were doing, and he asked them to be careful. When Elsa-May ended the call, she told Ettie what he said. Perfect cover, Ettie muttered. Why don't we spy on him and see what he's doing? It's not far, I think I could walk that distance. Let's go. Through the window of Clara's house, they watched him photograph quilts with meticulous care, measuring each one, noting patterns. He's documenting everything, Elsa-May whispered. Every detail needed to make perfect copies. Or identify valuable targets, Ettie added. Then they watched him packing up. He walked out of the house on foot, heading to the group of shops up the road. He walked into Cedar Grove's only cafe. He sat alone, reviewing photographs on his laptop. When he stepped away to place his order, Ettie moved quickly to talk with him while Elsa-May glimpsed at his screen. They keep talking about nothing in particular, as he ordered a meal. Then Ettie walked outside to join Elsa-May. Did you find out anything? Ettie asked. I saw names and prices. Also what looked like file names, some sort of code, letters and numbers. Could be telling someone which quilts are worth copying? After Dave spent half an hour eating, they followed him to the post office where he sent a package. Back at the B&B, Ettie and Elsa-May filled Maggie in on everything she missed out on. Ettie paced the room while Elsa-May sat in the window seat with Maggie. I think he sent that package to China, Elsa-May said. The package at the post office. Along with all those photographs from the previous collections, Ettie replied. The Morrison estate, the Blackwood pieces, both compromised after Dave photographed them. And that exhibition of his. Elsa-May shook her head. All those quilts with questionable origins. Convenient how he always had an alibi when the thefts happened. Always photographing something else somewhere else. It's circumstantial, Ettie admitted, stopping her pacing. But it's adding up. Elsa-May leaned forward. Question is, did he kill Walter to get access to the collection and to Marla and Clara? Or did Walter discover what he was doing with his photographs? A knock at the door interrupted them. Clara stood there, hesitating before stepping inside. I overheard what you were saying, she said quietly, moving further into the room. I know you were talking about Dave Dublin. I'm worried too. There's something going on with him. Like what? Do you have any idea? Maggie asked. He just wouldn't leave us alone, Clara continued, twisting her hands in her lap. Always hanging around, asking questions, wanting to photograph everything. I always thought there was something funny about him. Has something else happened though? Maggie asked. Clara took a deep breath. He's asked to stay late tonight. To photograph some special pieces. I don't want to be alone with him. Marla's visiting cousins, so I'll be all by myself. Ettie straightened. We'll come over. What time? 8 o'clock. We'll be there, Elsa-May assured her. Would you? I would be forever grateful. Especially when Walter's killer has not been found. She sniffed as though holding back tears. After Clara left, Ettie turned to her sister. Perfect opportunity to catch him in the act. Or walk into danger, Elsa-May cautioned. We should call Detective Kelly first. Agreed. But Clara's scared. We're going either way, Maggie said. As evening approached, they prepared to face Dave Dublin, armed with their evidence and suspicions. Whatever happened tonight, they were closer to understanding Walter's death, and the dangerous world of quilt forgery that could have led to his murder. Chapter 25. Ettie and Elsa-May arrived at Clara's house to find Dave's car already in the driveway. Clara answered their knock quickly, her relief evident. He's setting up in the study, she whispered, leading them inside. Dave had transformed the study into a makeshift photography studio. Lights surrounded an antique quilt displayed on a stand, his camera equipment arranged precisely. Oh, company? Dave's smile didn't reach his eyes. I was hoping for a quiet session. We brought cookies, Elsa-May held up a tin. Thought we'd make it social. Dave's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Just stay clear of the equipment. They watched him work, noting how he photographed each quilt from multiple angles, measuring and documenting every detail. His movements were practiced, professional, and somehow predatory. These quilts must be worth a fortune, Ettie commented casually. They are, Dave replied, adjusting his lens. The Chinese market especially, they appreciate fine craftsmanship. Interesting you mentioned China, Ettie said. We heard about some remarkable copies appearing there. Dave's hand stilled on his camera. Copies? Almost perfect ones. Like someone had detailed photographs to work from, Elsa-May added. The room grew tense. Clara, by the doorway, wrapped her arms around herself. I'm not sure what you're going on about. Photography is about preservation, Dave said carefully. Documentation. Like the Morrison collection? Elsa-May asked. Or the Blackwood pieces? Dave's camera clicked sharply. You've been educating yourselves. Interesting. Perhaps even asking questions. Walter was asking questions too, wasn't he? Ettie stepped forward. About forgeries. About missing quilts. Walter was a paranoid old man, Dave snapped. Seeing conspiracy where there was only progress. Progress? Clara's voice shook. Is that what you call it? Dave turned to her, his expression darkening. You hired me. Because you insisted. Practically threatened me, Clara said. After what happened to Walter. After what happened to Walter, you needed an expert. Someone to properly document his legacy, Dave said. Or someone to copy it? Ettie pressed. Like the Morrison quilts? The Blackwood collection? Dave's laugh held no humor. Prove it. We might have the shipping records, Elsa-May bluffed. To China. The messages about which quilts to copy. And the timing of the thefts, Ettie added. Always after you finished photographing a collection. Dave's hand moved toward his camera bag. Clara gasped. Don't, Ettie warned. Detective Kelly is on his way. Is he? Dave's smile turned cruel. Like he was on his way to help Walter? The admission hung in the air. Clara pressed a hand to her mouth. Walter threatened to expose you, Ettie said softly. The forgery ring. The thefts. All of it. Walter didn't understand the market, Dave replied. These quilts locked away in private collections? We made them accessible. Affordable. By stealing them? Making forgeries? By creating opportunities. Dave reached for his bag again. And I'm not losing everything because two nosy sisters can't mind their business. Too late, Detective Kelly's voice came from the doorway. We heard everything. Dave spun to find Kelly and two officers in the study entrance. His shoulders slumped. The Henderson theft was the mistake, Kelly continued, producing handcuffs. Got sloppy with the timing. Made us look closer at the pattern of things. As the officers led Dave away, Clara sank into a chair. I knew something was wrong when he insisted on photographing everything so soon after Walter was gone. He was going to steal them, Ettie said. Like the others. And the forgeries? Elsa-May asked Kelly. We'll find them. His studio's being searched now. We were able to get a search warrant at short notice. But the murder charge, that's the priority. Marla was called back to stay with Clara. Later, back at the B&B, Ettie and Elsa-May sat processing the evening's events. One mystery solved, Ettie said. But not all of them, Elsa-May reminded her. What about the quilt that was sent to us? Did Dave do that? We don't know. He'd have no reason to do it. Ettie nodded slowly. Someone else knows something. Someone who wanted us involved. Bonnie. Maybe. We need to talk with her again. We'll do that tomorrow. And hope she's in a talking mood, Elsa-May added. The sisters and Maggie settled in for the night, their minds already turning to the next phase of their investigation. Dave Dublin was caught, but the web of secrets surrounding Walter's death still had threads to unravel. Chapter 26. They reached Bonnie's house, and through the front window they saw her writing at a desk. Ready? Ettie asked as they approached the door. Bonnie saw them through the window, and opened the front door before they could knock. Nice to see you again. I wondered when you'd show up. She stepped aside. Come in. I assume this is about Dave Dublin's arrest. You heard about that so quickly? Ettie asked as she stepped inside. It's a small town. News travels quickly. The interior of Bonnie's house was minimalist, but seemed expensive. Bonnie led them through her home, pride evident in her voice as she showed them her collection. This one, she said, pointing to an intricate star pattern hanging in the entryway, I bought at last month's auction. Cost me nearly $3,000. The pattern is called Evening Star. It's quite rare. That's quite an investment, Ettie commented, studying the precise stitching. And this one in the living room, Bonnie continued, leading them to a stunning garden scene. It reminded me of Mother's flower garden. I outbid 3 people for it. Even Clara couldn't match my offer. She guided them upstairs where more quilts adorned every room. The master bedroom featured a particularly elaborate piece covering the king-sized bed, its blues and purples creating a stunning ocean effect. My pride and joy, Bonnie said, smoothing a hand over the fabric. Won it at the spring auction. You should have seen Clara's face when I outbid her. She wanted it badly, but I had more resources. There was a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Working? Elsa-May asked, noticing the ledgers visible through the study door. Always. Running legitimate businesses takes effort. Bonnie's emphasis on legitimate wasn't subtle. Unlike some people, I keep everything above board. What kind of businesses do you have? Maggie asked. I own the local cafe, and I run a childcare business and an online craft supply business. That's quite a lot, Ettie commented, admiring another quilt hanging in the hallway, this one featuring a dramatic sunburst pattern. I like it because it keeps me busy, keeps me from thinking about my 2 horrible sisters and the man who dumped me for them. Bonnie adjusted the sunburst quilt. Each of these represents my success without them. Every quilt is a reminder that I don't need their approval or their help. And I can assure you that none of these quilts were made outside of this country. From the few things she said to me the other day, I'm guessing you knew about Dave getting quilts made in China? Ettie watched her carefully. I suspected something funny was going on, and if Walter was killed, that could mean he knew for certain. Bonnie sat down in a quilted armchair, her hand absently stroking the carefully stitched pattern. Someone had to be helping him, so Clara or Marla had to be involved. Clara and Marla? Ettie said as the ladies sat down. But Clara just helped get Dave arrested. Dave was the photographer, yes. The middleman. But who had access to the quilts? Who knew which ones were valuable? Who could arrange private viewings? Understanding dawned on Eddie's face. Your sisters? Exactly. I'm guessing Walter discovered their connection. Perhaps he was gathering proof when he died. Maybe he even said he was going to expose them, or turn them into the police. Perhaps it was Walter who was doing it and making a lot of money, and Dave wanted to take over. Did you ever think of that? Elsa-May asked, studying a particularly intricate wedding ring pattern quilt hanging nearby. I suppose it's possible, but anything is possible. Elsa-May cleared her throat. Can I ask you when you grew estranged from your sisters? I have such a close bond with Ettie myself, and nothing can quite replace that bond. Ettie was glad to hear it. She was getting worried with all the time Elsa-May was spending with Maggie. I don't believe that family can have a place in your heart where they can hurt you all the time, and you constantly have to forgive them when you wouldn't do that for a friend, Bonnie said, her voice bitter. She gestured to the quilts surrounding them. These are my family now. At least they don't betray me. Ettie clasped her hands together. And what did they do to hurt you? Like I already said, they lured him away from me. We were even talking of marriage, but Clara changed all that with her business proposal. He asked me what I thought about it, and I told him not to do it. I gave him an ultimatum, her or me. He went with the money. What more can I tell you? How much do you know about what they were doing? Maggie asked. With getting the fake quilts made in China? Nothing concrete, just whispers here and there and putting it all together. It's ironic, isn't it? I spend thousands on authentic quilts while they're allegedly selling fakes. But then they always did prefer the easy way out. Do you get the connection? I'm real, they are the ones who are fake. Through the window, Ettie saw storm clouds gathering. The quilts took on a different character in the dimming light. It made Ettie wonder if perhaps they needed to look at Walter's murder in a different light. Chapter 27. The hired car wound its way back toward Ettie and Elsa-May's house. Kelly the cat curled regally in a patch of sunlight on the back seat while Snowy dozed at their feet. Maggie turned around from the front seat, her face troubled. I just can't believe it, she said, shaking her head. Clara and Marla. I've known them for years. Kelly opened one eye at Maggie's voice, then went back to her nap. Clara's so respected in the quilt world, Maggie continued. All those workshops she's given, the articles she's written. It doesn't make sense that she could be involved like her sister is suggesting. Sometimes the most respected people have the most to hide, Ettie said softly. Snowy shifted, resting his head on Elsa-May's foot with a heavy sigh. But all those dreadful things. Maggie twisted in her seat. The forgeries, the stolen quilts, it seems impossible. Time will tell, Elsa-May said. Kelly stretched and moved to investigate something through the window, her tail brushing across their faces as she passed. I remember when Clara organized her first fundraiser. I was there, Maggie said. She worked tirelessly. And Marla, she's always been so gentle, so kind. That's what makes it harder to accept if Bonnie's right, Ettie replied. When people we trust turn out to be different than we thought. The car hit a small bump, making Kelly dig her claws briefly into the seat cushion before settling again. Do you really think they could have? Maggie couldn't finish the sentence. Killed Walter? Ettie asked quietly. We don't know for certain. But they had more reason than most. If only we knew what Walter discovered, Elsa-May mused. What made him change his will? You know what bothers me most? Maggie said after a while. How normal they seemed. Even after everything. Going about their business, acting concerned. That's what good pretenders do, Ettie replied. They make us doubt our own judgment. We don't know for sure that Bonnie is correct. The car turned onto a familiar road, making Snowy perk up in recognition. Kelly too seemed to sense they were nearly home, moving to her travel basket. I suppose we'll never look at quilts the same way again, Maggie said sadly. Or sisters, Elsa-May added. As they pulled up to the house, Snowy's tail wagged. When Ettie opened the car door, Snowy jumped out and ran up the porch steps and waited at the front door. Well, whatever happens next, I'm glad you two were there with me, Maggie said. Thank you for asking us, Elsa-May said as the driver pulled their luggage out of the trunk. Chapter 28. Detective Kelly's knock came just after breakfast. Snowy immediately went into a frenzy of excited barking, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. Snowy, calm down, Ettie said, but the dog was already circling Kelly's feet as he entered. Could you put him somewhere else? Kelly asked, stepping back from the enthusiastic dog. I prefer not to have animals around while I'm working. Of course, Elsa-May said, leading Snowy to the bedroom. His whines of protest could be heard even after she closed the door. Ladies, Kelly said, sitting in the offered chair. We need to talk. Coffee? Ettie asked, but Kelly shook his head. I'll get straight to the point. Dave Dublin's out on bail. What? The sisters spoke in unison. He insists he never murdered Walter. Claims they were working together on getting quilts made in China. Kelly rubbed his forehead. Of course, with Walter dead, there's no way to verify that. You think he's lying? Ettie asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. We pressed him hard during questioning. He didn't break. Kelly's eyes narrowed. But that doesn't mean he's telling the truth. Convenient story when the other party can't contradict it. Snowy's whining grew louder from behind the bedroom door. So he's just free? Elsa-May asked. For now. Kelly leaned forward. But what interests me more is what you two were doing in Cedar Grove. Having a little vacation at a bed and breakfast, Elsa-May said innocently. Surely there's no harm in that? A vacation. Kelly's voice was flat. That just happened to coincide with your investigation into Dave Dublin? We weren't investigating, Ettie protested. We were just observing. Following him to the post office? Watching his studio? That's not observing, ladies. That's surveillance. We were concerned, Elsa-May said. After what happened to Walter. I understand you want answers. But I need to do this by the book, so no evidence is tainted for when we go to trial. We were careful, Ettie insisted. Not careful enough. I heard about your little chat with Bonnie too. And she had plenty to say about Walter's business dealings, I'm sure. Kelly stood. Everyone in this case seems to be playing an angle. Dave claims he and Walter were partners. Bonnie presents herself as the wronged party. But someone's lying. And someone killed Walter, Elsa-May added quietly. Exactly. So please stay out of it. No more vacations that just happen to take you to where suspects live. No more following people. No more amateur interrogations. He moved toward the door. I mean it, ladies. Next time you might not be so lucky. After Kelly left, the sisters sat in thoughtful silence, broken only by Snowy's continued whining. They let Snowy out, and he ran around sniffing where the detective had been. Well, Ettie said finally, that was interesting. Very, Elsa-May agreed. Especially about Dave and Walter supposedly working together. Chapter 29. The market was busy with its usual Saturday morning crowd, when Ettie and Elsa-May finally ventured out to replenish their depleted pantry. We're passing the bootmakers, Elsa-May noted. My boots should be ready by now. Might as well check, Ettie agreed, adjusting her basket. The familiar smell of leather and polish greeted them as they entered Tom's shop. He looked up from his workbench, hands stilled on a half-finished boot. Ladies, good morning. He smiled at them. Your boots are ready, Mrs. Smith. As he went to fetch them, Ettie noticed a familiar pattern in a sketch on his desk. Tom, that quilt pattern. Ah. He paused. So how did you like it? The sisters stared at him. Like what? Ettie asked. The quilt I sent you. He chuckled. You sent us that quilt? Yes, I felt sorry for you after I heard the story about your dog ripping apart your quilt. So I thought I'd replace it for you. Elsa-May's eyes widened. That was very kind, but why the secrecy in not telling us it was from you? You didn't even put a sender name on the package. Ettie cleared her throat. More importantly, where did you get that quilt from? Oh yes, that is a very good question. Both ladies stared at Tom, waiting for a reply. Tom narrowed his eyes. You both seem bothered. I didn't do anything wrong. But how did you get it? Ettie pressed. Tom wiped his hands on his apron. It's a long story. And when I say long, I mean it's pretty long. We've got all the time in the world, Ettie said. Okay, this is for your ears only. Walter Heiser was having his shoe repaired a couple of years back. We got talking, and he said he was sourcing old quilts, and if I could find him any old quilts he'd pay me $50 for each one I could find him. Do you know how many shoe repairs I have to do for $50? Elsa-May and Ettie shook their heads. Tom continued, then after we'd done a few deals together, he had another opportunity for me. That's how I put it, an opportunity. I was ready to listen because times were tough back then and still are. Go on, Ettie urged. He got quilts made to look authentic and all I had to do was age them, make them look old. So I agreed. Walter was paying me $100 per quilt, just to cut off tags and leave them hanging in my smelly barn for a few weeks. Ettie stared at him, summing him up. Tom wouldn't have killed Walter because he would have been cutting off his nose to spite his face. When I heard Walter died, that was the end of things for me. I had one quilt left, and I heard about your problem. I would have just put that old quilt on the bonfire, but I figured you could use it. Ettie frowned. But you asked us if we had an old quilt. Yeah, but old habits. Before he could answer properly, Ettie added, Tom, you do realize that quilt had a Made in China label on it? No. I didn't even think about it, to tell you the truth. I just wanted it out of the barn and off my hands. That explains the smell, Elsa-May said softly. Will you tell the police all that you told us? Ettie asked. Because they don't know for certain of Walter's involvement and they're blaming someone else. Tom's face hardened. No, and for good reason. I don't want any involvement with the police. I'll deny everything. I was just getting a bit of cash from it. Didn't see much wrong with it. Walter was behind the forgeries, you say? Maybe it was a young man using his name. How old was the man calling himself Walter? Elsa-May asked. Tom described Walter in detail while arranging tools on his workbench, not meeting their eyes. How long had all this been going on for? Ettie demanded. Couple years maybe. Times are hard, you know. Tom picked up a hole punch and set it down again. Said it wasn't hurting anyone. Rich collectors got what they wanted. I got a little bit, he got a little bit. But they weren't just copies, Elsa-May said. There were thefts too. Tom's hand stilled. I didn't know about that part. Just did what I was asked. Aged the quilts, removed labels. Walter handled the rest. And Clara and Marla? Ettie asked. Did they know? Never heard their names mentioned. Just Walter. And sometimes that photographer fellow. Dave Dublin? Tom nodded. He'd come by sometimes, checking on the aging process. Very particular about making things look authentic. The sisters exchanged looks. This changed everything they thought they knew about Walter. So Walter and Dave were in this together? Ettie asked. Tom sighed, finally meeting their eyes. That's right. He was worried the last few times I saw him. Said something about proof, about making things right. Eddie's eyes grew wide. Did he say what kind of proof? No. But the day before he died, he came by. Said he was done with it all. Was going to come clean, and he wasn't going to be bringing me any more quilts. Tom picked up Eddie's boots again. These are on the house. And that's all I'm saying about any of it. Under the circumstances, Ettie shook her head. I insist on paying full price. No, you don't have to. I insist. Ettie pulled money out of her bag and paid him, and then was handed the boots. Outside, the sisters walked in stunned silence for several steps. Walter was part of it, Elsa-May finally said. All this time. But he was going to confess, Ettie replied. And someone killed him to stop him. Detective Kelly needs to know this, Elsa-May said. Will Tom talk with him? He might not have a choice now. They did a quick market shop and then headed home. Chapter 30. Detective Kelly's early morning knock startled Snowy into barking. When Ettie opened the door, Kelly's face told her something was wrong before he spoke a word. May I sit down? He asked, looking shaken. Of course. Ettie guided him to a chair while Elsa-May hurried to put on coffee. There's been another murder, Kelly said, running a hand over his face. Dave Dublin. Found him on the roadside near his home. Blunt force trauma to the head by the looks of it. We're still waiting on the full examination. When? Ettie asked softly. Sometime last night. A farmer found him this morning. Elsa-May set a cup of coffee and a plate of fresh bread in front of Kelly. You think it's connected to Walter's murder? Kelly took a long sip before answering. Has to be. Dave must have known something, maybe who really killed Walter. Was going to talk, perhaps. And someone silenced him, Ettie finished. Exactly. Kelly broke off a piece of bread. Which means Walter's killer is still out there. What about Clara and Marla? Elsa-May asked. Are they safe? We've got someone watching them. But honestly, I don't know if they're potential victims or suspects at this point. I should have had Dave followed. But lack of manpower made it impossible. You couldn't have known, Ettie said gently. Maybe not. But now we've got 2 murders, both connected to this quilt forgery business. He looked up at them. You two need to be careful. Whatever you've stumbled into, it's bigger than we thought. After finishing his coffee, Kelly stood to leave. I'll keep you informed. Just watch yourselves. Once he was gone, Ettie turned to her sister. We need to tell Maggie. Elsa-May gave a nod. Agreed. They found Maggie in her garden, deadheading roses. Her face paled at their news. Dave Dublin? Dead? She sank onto a garden bench. Detective Kelly thinks Dave was about to reveal something about Walter's murder, Ettie explained. Maggie whispered, Clara and Marla, are they all right? We don't know. It is possible they are involved somehow. Perhaps they knew. We did hear from someone else that Walter was involved with Dave Dublin. For certain? Maggie asked. I'm afraid so, Ettie said, nodding. Maggie's hands twisted in her apron. I can't believe any of this is happening. 2 murders? Someone's desperate to keep secrets buried, Ettie said. But whose secrets? Maggie asked. Walter's? Dave's? Clara and Marla's? Or someone else entirely, Elsa-May suggested. They sat in Maggie's garden, the peaceful scene at odds with their dark conversation. First Walter, now Dave, Maggie said softly. Who's next? Neither sister answered. The same question had been haunting them since Kelly's visit. We should head back, Ettie said finally. Detective Kelly warned us to be careful. Dave must have known something important, Elsa-May said. Maggie sighed. I'm worried about Clara and Marla. They must feel that everyone dies around them. She stood suddenly, brushing dirt from her skirt. We should go see them. Make sure they're all right. They still have that suspicion hanging over their heads about the quilts not being genuine. Visit them? Ettie asked cautiously. Yes. Maggie's face brightened with purpose. I could call the car hire company. Get a car and driver for the day. Just drive up and back, spend a few hours with them. Elsa-May glanced at her sister before saying, We'll come with you if it's only for one day and we get back before night. You would? Relief flooded Maggie's face. That would be wonderful. 3 familiar faces might be just what they need right now. We won't be able to do that today, Ettie pointed out. Tomorrow then, Maggie decided. I'll make the arrangements. She paused, looking between the sisters. Thank you. I know things are complicated, but they're still our friends. Of course they are. And it's always said that people are guilty until proven innocent. Ettie frowned at her sister. It's the other way around. Innocent until proven guilty. Oh yes. Elsa-May smiled. You're right for once, Ettie. It doesn't happen very often. Maggie and Elsa-May chuckled, but Ettie didn't think it was very funny. Chapter 31. On their way home, Ettie grabbed her sister's arm. We need to see Tom again. Again? Why? Ettie explained, Dave Dublin was a suspect in Walter's murder. Let's see if Tom knows more than he's told us. It's very suspicious that Dave Dublin was killed after we spoke with Tom. The detective told us to be careful, and this doesn't seem very careful to me. Detective Kelly says that, but I don't think he really means it. Otherwise he wouldn't be continuing to share information with us. If you don't want to come with me, I'll go by myself. Elsa-May rolled her eyes. You know I'm not going to let you do that. Well, let's go then. They found Tom at his workbench, hands busy with leather and tools. He looked up warily as they entered. Back so soon? Have you heard about Dave Dublin? Ettie asked without preamble. Tom's hand stilled. Found dead, they say. Nasty business. Did you know him well? Elsa-May pressed. Only through Walter. Tom set down his tools carefully. Look, I told you everything I know. Did you? Ettie moved closer to the workbench. You said Dave would check the quilts while they were aging. What exactly was he checking? Tom's fingers drummed against the leather. Quality, I suppose. Making sure they looked authentic. And Walter? What was his role? Ladies. Tom glanced at the door. Dave's dead. Walter's dead. Maybe we should let it rest. 2 murders, Ettie said quietly. Both connected to the quilts. Both connected to you. You knew them both. Are you accusing me of something? No, Elsa-May stepped in. We're trying to understand. Dave was killed because he knew something. What if it was about the aging process? About your involvement? Tom's face paled slightly. I was just aging quilts. That's all. But you knew they were forgeries, Ettie pressed. You knew where they came from. China, yes. But I didn't ask questions. I couldn't tell you anything about how they got into the country, or telling the people in the other country what they wanted. I don't even have an address or name of the factory. Did Dave? Tom's hands shook slightly as he picked up his awl again. Maybe. Toward the end. The end of what? Elsa-May asked. The arrangement. Walter told me Dave wanted a bigger cut. Tom looked up. That's all I know. When was this? Week before Walter died. Tom swallowed hard. Last time I saw either of them. Did Walter say anything else about Dave? Just that he was causing trouble. Dave was threatening to expose everything if he didn't get what he wanted. The sisters exchanged looks. And now they're both dead, Ettie said softly. Don't remind me. Tom stood abruptly. I've got work to do. And if anyone asks, we never had this conversation. Tom, Elsa-May said gently, if you know anything else. I don't. And I'd like to keep breathing. He picked up a boot. Good day, ladies. Outside they walked in thoughtful silence before Ettie spoke. Dave was virtually blackmailing Walter. And someone killed them both to keep the forgery ring secret, Elsa-May finished. Question is, who had the most to lose if it was exposed? Maybe we'll find out more tomorrow when we visit Marla and Clara. Chapter 32. The hired car pulled up to Clara and Marla's house, just as a delivery boy was leaving. On their porch sat an elaborate arrangement of black roses, their dark petals a stark contrast against the white paint of the door. That looks a little weird, Maggie muttered as they approached. I've never seen black roses before, Ettie said. They're not real, they're painted, Elsa-May said as she leaned forward to touch the petals. Clara opened the door before they could knock, her face drawn and pale. She'd lost weight since they'd last seen her, her dress hanging loosely on her frame. Did you see? She gestured at the flowers, hand trembling. Who sent them? Ettie asked. No card. Marla appeared behind her sister, one hand protectively on Clara's shoulder. But we can guess. They followed the sisters inside. Clara's shoulders were hunched over, making her seem smaller. Marla moved restlessly around her, adjusting cushions, offering tea, checking windows. Dolores Harper, Clara said quietly, sinking into her chair. She always did have a flair for the dramatic. We think she might be the one who sent those roses. Also, the other option is Bonnie. She never does anything by halves. Marla stood and looked out the window when she heard a car. It's Dolores Harper. Trust her to show up now. As if summoned by her name, they heard another knock. Dolores stood on the porch, dressed in elaborate morning black, her face a mask of concern beneath an oversized hat. My dears, she said, sweeping inside without waiting for invitation. I came as soon as I heard about poor Dave. Her eyes caught sight of the black roses and widened with obviously fake surprise. Oh my. How dramatic. Like you didn't send them? Marla muttered. Me? Dolores pressed a hand to her chest. I would never. Such a tragedy. Anyway, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but under the circumstances I think we can put our differences aside. We have lost 2 members of the quilting world. And in my book, that's a tragedy. Thank you, Clara said. You might as well take a seat. Dolores settled onto the sofa. Thank you. Ettie noticed how Dolores's eyes kept darting around the room, as if searching for something. They lingered particularly long on a closed door, leading to what Ettie assumed was an office. Did you know him well? Elsa-May asked innocently. Dave Dublin? Oh yes, we worked together occasionally. He photographed my collection last spring. Such a talented man. Though he did have his secrets. What kind of secrets? Ettie watched Dolores carefully. Well, he was very interested in Tom Wallace's work. Clara fixed her eyes on her. Tom? The bootmaker? The very same. He visited Dave often. Very often. Sometimes late at night. Ettie was astounded that they all knew Tom. Something told Ettie that Dolores's visit had more to do with Tom than offering her condolences about Dave. Marla stood abruptly. I don't see what Tom has to do with any of this. Don't you? Dolores smiled thinly. I saw them together many times. Such intense conversations. Almost like they were planning something. Or maybe they had some sort of project together. I wonder what that could have been. Why are you really here, Dolores? Clara asked quietly. To offer my sympathies, of course. And... She paused dramatically, fishing a handkerchief from her sleeve. To warn you. Warn us about what? Marla asked. Dave kept records, you know. Of everything. Every conversation, every meeting, every transaction. She dabbed at dry eyes. And now that he's dead, who knows where those records might turn up? Or in whose hands? The room fell silent except for the ticking of the mantel clock. Ettie watched the interplay of expressions between the women. Clara's fear, Marla's barely contained anger, Dolores' satisfaction tinged with something that looked almost like desperation. I should go, Dolores stood suddenly. But do be careful, dears. Secrets have a way of coming out. Especially secrets about old quilts and new ones. And if you don't want that to happen, you know where to find me. After she left, Clara sank deeper into her chair. That woman, she's always known how to twist the knife. She's trying to frighten us, Marla said firmly. But why? Maggie asked. What does she gain? Control, Clara replied bitterly. She always could control people with what she knew or claimed to know. It's all rubbish, you can't believe a word of it. So you know Tom, the bootmaker? Ettie asked. Clara looked away. He was an acquaintance of Walter's. I didn't know he was also an acquaintance of Dave Dublin's. Dolores watches everyone, Marla snapped. It's what she does. She collects secrets like some people collect quilts. But something in her tone made Ettie look closer. Both sisters seemed unsettled by the mention of Tom, but was it fear of what Dolores knew or something else? And why had Marla positioned herself between Clara and that closed office door? The conversation turned to safer topics: the weather, Maggie's garden, the quilt fundraiser. But undercurrents of tension remained. Clara's hands shook whenever she lifted her teacup. Marla's eyes kept returning to the window, as if expecting another unwelcome visitor. When they left an hour later, the roses still dominated the porch. In the car heading home, Ettie turned to her sister. Dolores seemed awfully interested in Tom. Apparently she has information and proof of what they were doing with the quilts, Maggie said. They felt silent, considering the implications. Those black roses though, Elsa-May said softly. That's not just spite. That's a message. But from who? Ettie said. And it seems Clara and Marla know about the fake quilts, because how would they know Tom the boot repair man? He doesn't even live in the same town as they do. Yes, but we couldn't ask them, could we? Maggie said. That's right. We couldn't, Elsa-May agreed with a nod. The car turned onto the main road, leaving Clara and Marla's house behind. We should talk to Dolores and find out exactly what she was talking about, Ettie said. If she'll talk to us, Elsa-May cautioned. After Dave's murder. She'll talk more freely without the sisters around, Ettie said firmly. She has to. Before someone else dies. Chapter 33. The next day back at home, the sisters heard a car pull up. They looked out to see Clara getting out of the car, and she had a box in her hands. It's Clara by herself. What is she doing here? We were just there. I wonder where Marla is, Ettie said. Elsa-May moved towards the door. There's one way to find out. They let Clara into the house, and found out that Marla was at Maggie's house. What's in the box? Elsa-May asked as the three women sat down. Since you've taken an interest in things, always asking questions, there's something you should see. She set the box down and fished something out of it. It was a newspaper article. 3 years ago, Dolores Harper lost everything in a bank collapse. Elsa-May peered at the small article. The Midwest savings scandal? I think I heard about that. You would've. It was huge. And right before the big quilting competition that Walter judged. The one where Dolores's masterpiece didn't even place. She was furious. Said Walter had personal reasons for marking her quilts down. And I guess she needed that prize money, Ettie mused. After losing her savings. Dolores threatened Walter, she said quietly. After the competition. Said she knew things that could ruin him. What things? Ettie asked. I didn't know then, but I'm guessing now it's about the quilts. The forgeries. Clara stared into her tea and looked up at them. I'm guessing you know about them too? Ettie nodded. We have heard a few things. She must have known everything. I have no idea how. I just wanted you to know that Marla and I are innocent of everything. We had nothing to do with what Walter was selling. That was his business and we kept out of it. He was only my business partner as far as the channel was concerned. You'll have to tell all this to Detective Kelly. He already knows a lot. He knows about the fake quilts because we actually had one. Clara stared at Elsa-May. I'm not in a hurry to do that. I don't want to ruin Walter's name. I owe him that much. I'm only telling you both so you'll stop asking questions and poking into things. It's most distressing. She stood up and told them she was heading to Maggie's house. After Clara left to join Marla at Maggie's house, Ettie and Elsa-May sat in stunned silence for a few moments, processing everything they'd learned. They knew about it, and they were turning a blind eye. We need to talk to Detective Kelly, Ettie said, standing up. This changes everything. You're right, Elsa-May agreed. Let me get my coat. And she didn't say that we couldn't tell him, did she? She didn't. At the police station, Detective Kelly had listened intently as they relayed Clara's revelations about Dolores Harper and the quilting competition, losing her money and her threatening Walter. When they had finished, he leaned back in his chair with a grim face. We've actually made some progress on that front, he had told them. On Walter's computer, we found emails between Dolores and him spanning the last 3 years. In them, she explicitly threatened to expose him. Said she'd tell everyone what really happened with those quilts unless he paid her. Elsa-May had gasped. She was blackmailing him. Kelly had nodded. We traced significant money transfers from Walter's accounts to Dolores. Monthly payments, starting right after that quilting competition Clara mentioned. We think she stumbled onto evidence of his operation, while researching her own case against him after the competition. Instead of exposing him immediately, she saw an opportunity. Did you speak with Dolores yet? Elsa-May had asked. Kelly's expression had darkened. That's the problem. When we went to see her today, she was gone. House cleaned out, car missing. I think she knew we'd be onto her sooner or later. But she's not the murderer, is she? Ettie asked. That wouldn't make sense, unless he said he was going to stop paying her. That's what we're trying to figure out. He had paused, shuffling through some papers on his desk. We did find something interesting, though. Several large cash withdrawals from her account in the days before she disappeared, and security footage showed her meeting with someone at a coffee shop downtown. The camera angle wasn't clear enough to identify who it was. Couldn't even tell if it was male or female. Do you think it was someone connected to Walter's forgery operation? Elsa-May had asked. It's possible. We're looking into everyone who might have had knowledge of both the forgeries and our investigation. Kelly pulled up some files on his computer. The timing of everything is significant. She must have had proof that he was selling authentication certificates for fake antique quilts. That would explain why he agreed to pay her. Exposure would have been the end of his reputation in the quilting world. Whatever arrangement they had died with him. Oh, Ettie, she was hinting at exposing what Walter was doing when we were at Clara's house. Maybe she wanted them to pay her, and it could have been one of them she was meeting with. Elsa-May said. We need more than assumptions, we need proof. Now we focus on finding Dolores. She's our best lead to understanding the full scope of Walter's operation. Kelly started gathering his papers. I'd like you both to keep your ears open in the quilting community. People might say things to fellow quilters that they wouldn't tell the police. They've already done that on 2 occasions, Ettie said. Detective Kelly stood up. Keep yourselves safe, and don't put yourselves in any dangerous situations. As they had left the station, Ettie and Elsa-May walked slowly. What a tangled web. All this over quilts, Elsa-May said. Not just quilts, Ettie corrected her. Art, money, reputation, people have killed for less. And somewhere in all of this is Walter and Dave's killer. You think Dolores? I don't know. She could be running from something bigger than just the blackmail scheme. And whoever tipped her off about the arrest is protecting something too. Chapter 34. Yoo-hoo. It's me, someone called out at Ettie and Elsa-May's door. Maggie. Elsa-May opened the door with a smile. What brings you by? Don't you have visitors? Maggie stepped inside, her gentle presence filling the room. Yes, Clara and Marla are staying with me for a couple of days and well. She settled into a chair. We need a night without murder talk and quilts. Just good food and friends, so will you come for supper tonight? A normal evening? Sounds absolutely wonderful after everything that's happened. Clara's making apple pie, and I have a roast chicken in the oven. With your special potatoes? Elsa-May's eyes lit up. Of course. Will you both come? Around 6? The sisters exchanged glances, a lifetime of understanding passing between them. We'd love to, Ettie said, while Elsa-May nodded enthusiastically. Wonderful. I'll come back to get you both. Later that evening, they arrived at Maggie's house to find Clara and Marla in the kitchen, helping with final preparations. The house smelled of roasting chicken, herbs, and baking apples. Clara was pulling her perfectly golden pie from the oven, while Marla arranged fresh-cut flowers from Maggie's garden in a china vase. The table was set with Maggie's best china. No talk of murders or quilts tonight, Maggie announced firmly, bringing out a steaming dish of potatoes that made everyone's mouths water. Just good food and better company. They settled around the table, and they all bowed their heads for a silent prayer of thanks for the food. After that, they passed dishes and fell into easy conversation about Maggie's garden and flowers in general. For a while it felt almost normal, as if the dark cloud of recent events had temporarily lifted. Remember that fundraiser where Eddie's pie crust was so hard even Snowy wouldn't eat it? Elsa-May teased, and everyone laughed. At least I didn't put salt instead of sugar in the filling like someone I know, Ettie said. The comfortable atmosphere shattered at a sharp knock. When Maggie opened the door, Bonnie stood in the doorway, her expression stormy. Clara and Marla tensed visibly at the sight of their estranged sister. How did you know we were here? Marla asked. Found you through the location sharing app, she said before anyone could ask. The one we all installed after Father's funeral? You never turned it off, Clara. Bonnie, Maggie began uncertainly, we're just having supper. I know what you're doing. Having a cozy family dinner while spreading rumors about me. Bonnie's voice shook with emotion. I heard people talking at the market, saying I had something to do with Tom's death and Walter's death. Clara set down her fork with a clatter. We haven't. Haven't what? Haven't been wondering if I killed Walter because he cut me from the will? Haven't been suggesting I silenced Tom? Bonnie's eyes glistened. I loved Walter even after everything. Please, Marla said softly, speaking directly to her sister for the first time in months. Sit down. Have some pie. I don't want pie. I want this to stop. I'll get lawyers involved if I have to. Wait just a minute, Elsa-May stood slowly. Being sisters isn't easy. Ettie sends me absolutely crazy sometimes, but we put aside those differences because we have something special. We have a shared past. I've often longed for a sister. What you have is special, so don't throw it away, Maggie said. I'm not the one who ruins things, Bonnie said. Everyone views things differently. I'm sure your sisters think they aren't the ones who ruin things. There's good and bad in everyone, Ettie said. Accept your sisters' differences. God gave them to you for a reason. The point is, Elsa-May said, looking meaningfully between Clara, Marla, and Bonnie, sisters drive each other crazy. It's nothing new. Ettie and I have had our share of fights over the years. Like the Great Garden Debate of 1982, Ettie muttered. We agreed never to speak of that again. No matter what, we're still sisters. We still love each other, even when we want to wring each other's necks. Bonnie slowly sank into an empty chair. I miss them, she said suddenly, looking at Clara and Marla. Even when I'm angry, I miss my sisters. We did have good times, didn't we? We did, and we miss you too, Clara said softly. Every day. Maybe we could try being sisters again. Real sisters and start over? It won't be easy, Elsa-May warned, speaking from experience. Ettie still drives me up the wall at least once a week. Only once? Ettie asked innocently, ducking as Elsa-May threw a napkin at her head. But that's what sisters do, Elsa-May continued. We fight, we make up, and we love each other through it all. As long as you don't try to reorganize my entire house, Clara said to Bonnie, tentatively offering an olive branch. "I make no promises," Bonnie replied, a real smile finally breaking through. "Your linen closet is a disaster." "It is not." "Clara dear," Marla interrupted, "it really is. Even the mice get lost in there." The tension broke as laughter filled the room. Maggie quietly served Bonnie a plate of food that was still warm, and conversation gradually resumed. They talked about old memories of childhood adventures and misadventures. Later that evening, Ettie and Elsa-May sat in their cozy kitchen, sharing a pot of chamomile tea before bed. Kelly had claimed her usual spot on Elsa-May's lap, purring contentedly while Snowy dozed by Eddie's feet. "Well, that was quite an evening," Ettie said, warming her hands around her cup. "Sometimes the best evenings aren't planned at all. Did you see how Clara and Bonnie actually smiled at each other? Real smiles? I hope they find their way back to being proper sisters," Ettie said softly. "Like us." Ettie made a face. "Something like us? Even when we drive each other crazy?" Elsa-May asked. "I'm telling you, that's an everyday thing." Elsa-May smiled. "It takes a lot, Ettie, it takes a lot. Anyway, how's your knee?" "That shows how much you actually listen to me." "It's my ankle. Don't you remember, it was my ankle that was hurt from when I was wearing Maggie's big boots." "Gigantic boots," Elsa-May corrected her. Ettie nodded. "Enormous." Chapter 35. The following morning, Ettie and Elsa-May were back in the kitchen. Kelly the cat was perched on the windowsill watching birds, while Snowy dozed in a patch of sunlight in their small backyard. "I barely slept," Ettie admitted, stirring her tea. "Keep thinking about Dave Dublin and Walter." "2 murders, Elsa-May." "2. I know." Elsa-May pushed her plate aside. "And both connected to the quilt somehow." "I have my suspicions," Ettie said slowly, "but no proof." "And you know what we need when we have no proof?" Elsa-May looked up from her food. "No what?" "We need a confession." Easy to say, but not so easy to get. People don't just confess to murder because you ask nicely. "No," Ettie agreed, her eyes taking on that gleam that always made Elsa-May nervous. "But they might, if they think we already know who did it." Elsa-May narrowed her eyes. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "We gather everyone together. Everyone connected to the quilts. Everyone who was at the show when Walter was killed. Then we make them think we know who the killer is." Elsa-May's mouth turned down at the corners as she thought about that for a moment. "And how exactly do we do that?" "We tell them we've found evidence. Crucial evidence that points to the killer. We say the police are on their way, but we wanted to give the guilty party a chance to confess first." Elsa-May frowned. "That's quite a risk, Ettie. What if the killer calls your bluff while you're calling theirs? What if the killer panics?" "That's exactly what we want. People make mistakes when they panic. They reveal things. Or they do something desperate," Elsa-May pointed out. "Like hurt someone else." "We'll have Maggie there and Clara and Marla. Safety in numbers." "Should we include Bonnie? After last night?" "Especially after last night. She needs to be there. She's connected to both murders through Walter." Elsa-May stood to refill their teacups. "Who else would we need?" "Everyone, like I said before." "That's quite a list," Ettie mused. "We'll need a good reason to get them all together. We could say we're having a meeting to talk about Walter and Tom and what happened. Or about quilts. I don't know, I'll think of something. Not perfect, but it'll do, and I'm guessing that if the killer hears of it, he'll want to be there to hear what gets said. Where would we hold it? And when?" "Tomorrow evening. That way, it won't give anyone too much time to think about it." Elsa-May got up and paced the kitchen, her brow furrowed. "We need to be careful how we word things, Ettie. We can't actually accuse anyone." "No, but we can imply things." "And watch who reacts?" "Exactly. Sometimes it's not what people say, but how they respond when certain things are mentioned." "What if no one confesses?" Elsa-May asked. "Then at least we'll have observed their reactions. That might tell us something useful." Elsa-May sat back down, absently stroking Kelly, who had abandoned her windowsill to demand attention. We should tell Maggie first. Agreed. And we'll need to prepare what we're going to say very carefully. We should write it down, Elsa-May suggested. Plan out exactly how we'll present this evidence we supposedly have. Good idea. We need to be convincing when we hint at our supposed evidence. Ettie pulled out paper and a pencil. Let's start with Dave. What do we know for certain? He was knocked over the head. And Walter? Found dead in a pile of quilts, poisoned after changing his will. Ettie nodded. And the connection between them? The quilts, of course. They spent the next hour making notes, planning their strategy. Snowy occasionally lifted his head to watch them, as if following their discussion. We'll need to be ready for anything, Elsa-May said finally. If someone does confess. Then we get word to the police immediately, Ettie finished. And if no one confesses? Then we watch. We listen. And we pray we're not putting ourselves in danger. Ettie, Elsa-May said softly, are you sure about this? No, her sister admitted. But I'm even less sure about letting a killer walk free to kill again. We need to know who we can trust. And who we can't, Elsa-May added quietly. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what they were planning settling over them. Kelly jumped onto the table, walking between them as if sensing the importance of their discussion. If we're going to do this, we have to tell Detective Kelly. Ettie raised her eyebrows. You're right, Elsa-May, we do need to tell him. Elsa-May nodded. Yes. I'm right as always. Chapter 36. Ettie had managed to secure the town hall for her meeting, same place where Walter had been killed. It was unusually quiet as the guests filed in. Ettie and Elsa-May stood near the center watching everyone find their seats. It seemed that everyone who had been at the quilting show was present, along with those who had known Walter well. Clara and Marla Weaver sat near the front, along with their other sister Bonnie. Dolores Harker sat close by, arms folded, scanning the room with narrowed eyes. The only person missing was Maggie, who, after hearing what they were planning, didn't want to be in the middle of things. Once everyone had taken their seats, Ettie stood up and cleared her throat. The room fell silent. Elsa-May gave her sister an encouraging nod. Someone opened the door noisily, and everyone turned around to stare. It was Tom Wallace, the shoe repairman. He gave everyone a smile and a nod, before he sat in the back row. Ettie began, We've gathered you all here today because the truth has finally come to light. After piecing everything together, we know who killed Walter Heiser and Dave Dublin. A ripple of gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Ettie raised a hand. Please let me finish. We've also found proof. There's no use in hiding anymore. Whoever did this, it would be better for you to come forward now. The room fell into a tense silence. Then Clara and Marla started whispering. Then Marla stood up. It was me. A collective gasp filled the room. Dolores clutched her neck as if she were in the middle of a dramatic play, while Marla tugged at Clara's arm trying to get her to sit down. But wait, let me explain. It was an unfortunate turn of events. I always felt overlooked, and all I wanted was to take over the business for a while, to show Clara and everyone what I could do. I put something in a cupcake just to make Clara feel unwell for a few days. Clara sprang to her feet. You see, it was an accident. Marla handed me a cupcake, and I have been trying to watch my weight, and I didn't want to hurt her feelings because she said she made it for me especially. She walked away. I gave it to Walter. When they told me the autopsy revealed poison was in the cake, I confronted Marla and she confessed. We both decided to keep quiet about it, because we didn't want her to get into trouble. What? Bonnie screeched as the room erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. Why would you do that, Clara? She tried to poison you and you're okay with that? Marla's tears spilled over as she continued, her voice breaking. I've been jealous of Clara my entire life. She was always the star, the talented one, the one everyone admired. I was always the quiet sister, the one who stayed in the background. She wiped her cheeks with a shaking hand. The room was deathly quiet. But it wasn't a deliberate murder. It was an accident. So we'll get a good lawyer. Don't worry, Marla, we'll get you off this. Who killed Dave Dublin? Someone in the crowd called out. Ettie had been so shocked by the confession that she temporarily forgot about Dave Dublin. Marla shook her head. I didn't do that. Then Bonnie, the younger sister, stood. I was worried about you two all along. You're both twisted. Clara, you knew your sister tried to poison you, but you don't care and you try to cover for her. Marla, you're nothing but a killer, and I want nothing more to do with you. You probably killed Dave Dublin as well. I did not, Marla insisted. From the back of the room, Tom Wallace stood up. That's incorrect, Marla. I saw you do it. Marla whipped her head around. No, Tom. You probably did it, and now you're trying to blame me. Everyone will find out you did it. Tom got up and walked toward the door, but he was stopped by Detective Kelly, who had been listening at the back the whole time. One moment, Tom Wallace. The detective held up something wrapped in plastic. This hammer was found at your property. It's exactly the same size and shape of the weapon that killed Dave. Care to explain why it has blood on it? Tom's mouth fell open, but he didn't say anything. Detective Kelly opened the door and 2 police officers walked in and handcuffed Tom. Tom Wallace, Detective Kelly began. You are under the arrest for the murder of Dave Dublin. Detective Kelly proceeded to read him his rights following Tom as he was led out of the building. Did you know about this? Elsa-May whispered to Ettie. No, but that explains why Detective Kelly was keen for us to do this. Then the detective walked back in and headed to Marla. Marla remained silent as the detective recited her rights. She held her hands out, trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered, looking around at Clara. I'm so sorry. After the door closed behind them, the room remained frozen in place. After a moment, the guests began to file out in stunned silence, murmuring amongst themselves as they did so. Ettie stood beside Elsa-May, watching Clara wipe her eyes. She didn't deserve this, Ettie murmured. No, Elsa-May agreed quietly. Is she being arrested? Clara asked her sisters. I'm not sure. Maybe. Or maybe she's just going to be questioned. I never saw it coming. Marla was always by my side. My sister, my helper. I thought I knew her. Ettie exchanged a troubled glance with her sister before speaking. Sometimes we don't really know people at all, even family. Clara wiped her cheeks roughly with the corner of her shawl. I remember when we were little, she used to outshine me at quilting. Our mother always praised her work. Her voice turned bitter. I guess praise wasn't enough. Yet you still tried to protect her. Even when Kelly started asking questions, Ettie said. Clara's face crumpled. She's my sister, but I can't protect her from what's going to happen. It's hard to believe Tom killed Dave Dublin. He might have been difficult, but he didn't deserve to die. Ettie placed a hesitant hand on Clara's shoulder as they made their way to the door. She'll go before a judge in the morning and bail will be set, if she gets bail. Given the evidence. I know, Clara said quietly. And she should face the consequences. I never thought my sister would ever try to hurt me. Perhaps Bonnie saw something that I didn't. As they stepped, they found Bonnie there waiting. When she saw Clara's tear-stained face, she stepped forward hesitantly. Clara. I'm sorry Marla did that to you. I shouldn't have got angry before and said harsh things. Clara looked up, surprise flickering across her face. It's okay. It was tough for me to come to terms with it. I'm so sorry about Marla, Bonnie said, her voice catching. I know we've had our differences, but this isn't what I wanted. Not for any of us. Clara nodded slowly. I thought all our problems started with Walter, but maybe they began long before that. We were all so caught up in our own hurts that we didn't see Marla's. Bonnie admitted, I was so angry about Walter that I missed what was happening right in front of me. Maybe if we'd all talked more. We can't change what's happened, Clara said, straightening her shoulders. But maybe we can do better going forward. Bonnie reached out and took Clara's hand. Together this time. No more secrets? Clara squeezed her sister's hand. Together. I can't promise I can forgive Marla for what she did to you, but you did, so we'll see. Ettie and Elsa-May walked away, giving the sisters some privacy. Chapter 37. Ettie and Elsa-May returned home, and Ettie sank into the couch chair, letting out a long sigh. "Well, that's that," she muttered. Elsa-May joined her sister and sat in her favorite chair. "You know, your idea worked." Marla confessed to trying to make her sister ill. Ettie raised an eyebrow. "I know. I'm still in shock." Elsa-May smiled, a rare softness in her expression. "It was clever. Not every day you gather a room full of people and get a confession. I still can't believe how it all unfolded. Marla, she carried that bitterness for so long. It's all very sad. Bonnie seems like she's slowly coming around." Elsa-May nodded slowly. "It goes to show, you never really know what's going on beneath the surface with people. It's not always easy being the one in the background." But Marla forgot something important. Ettie tilted her head. "What's that?" Elsa-May's voice softened. "That being in the background doesn't make you any less valuable. It just means you're part of the picture in a different way." Ettie nodded, her gaze distant but thoughtful. "You're right, as usual." "Of course. Older sisters are always right." They looked at each other and exchanged a smile. The following day, there was a knock at the door. Elsa-May set her hot tea and cake aside. "Looks like Detective Kelly couldn't stay away for long." Their cat Kelly was sprawled across the back of the couch, snoring softly, but Snowy erupted into frantic barking, racing around the room with his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. "Snowy, down," Ettie called, but the little dog only barked louder. "We'd better put him outside before he drives us all mad." Elsa-May quickly put him in the backyard. "Go on then, you can bark at the squirrels instead." She shut the door on his continued yapping, and returned just as Ettie opened the front door to find Detective Kelly standing there. "Good morning, Detective," Ettie greeted, stepping aside to let him in. Kelly nodded as he entered. "Morning. I wanted to check in now that things have calmed down." Elsa-May motioned to a chair. "You've been busy, I'm sure." Kelly let out a groan as he took a seat. "That's an understatement. I've got enough paperwork to last me well into next year." Ettie brought over a cup of coffee, setting it in front of him. "Then you deserve this. Freshly brewed coffee and lemon cake." Elsa-May grabbed the cake. Elsa-May rushed to the kitchen and came back with the entire lemon cake cut into slices and set it down in front of Kelly. Kelly smiled as he picked up the cup. "Thank you both. Don't mind if I do." He had a sip of coffee and then had a bite of cake. "This cake is delicious." "Ettie made it." "Very good." He gave a nod. "I want to thank you both for your unrequested help. You managed to get a confession out of Marla for her part in what happened." Elsa-May gave a knowing grin. "We'll take that as a compliment." Kelly shook his head with a wry smile. "You two have a knack for getting involved, whether I ask you to or not." Ettie raised an eyebrow. "It's not meddling if it's useful, don't you think? Besides, no one tried to kidnap us or kill us this time." Kelly laughed. "Fair point. I've got some updates I thought you'd be interested in. Marla told us she made the poison out of cherry pits, a lot of them finely ground. She claims to have not known she was making cyanide." "So cyanide comes from cherry pits?" Ettie asked. "It seems it can, if you have enough. She claims to have mixed the poison into the frosting instead of the batter, so it wouldn't be destroyed by the heat." "What will happen to her?" Ettie asked. "Most likely she'll be charged with involuntary manslaughter. She acted recklessly by putting poison in the cupcake, even if she didn't mean to kill anyone. That's a felony there, and could get her up to 5 years in prison." Elsa-May frowned. "But she said she didn't mean to kill anybody." Kelly nodded. "That's true, and the DA will take that into account. If they find she's telling the truth, and she didn't intend to murder anyone, they won't push for first-degree charges. But reckless homicide is still a crime. She could also be charged with administering a toxic substance and reckless endangerment." Ettie tapped her fingers against the table. "So who decides?" "The district attorney will decide what charges to file. Then it's up to the courts. If she takes a plea deal, she might avoid a long sentence. But if it goes to trial and the jury thinks she should have known better, she could be looking at real time behind bars." Elsa-May shook her head. What a mess. One bad decision and everything spirals. Kelly took a mouthful of coffee. That's how these things usually go. She thought she was just making a point, and now someone's dead. Intent or not, there are consequences for the choices we make in life. Ettie sat back in her chair. And Tom? Kelly sighed and set his coffee down. Tom confessed, but he's still trying to justify what he did. He insists he didn't mean to kill Dave just to scare him. Said he only meant to knock some sense into him, not end his life. But well, that's not how it played out. That's the problem with hitting someone over the head, Ettie said. It rarely ends well. Kelly nodded. Exactly. He panicked afterward, tried to stage the scene to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. But once we started digging, the pieces didn't add up. Elsa-May tilted her head. And the quilts? Did you find out how deep this smuggling ring goes? Kelly exhaled and rubbed the back of his neck. We're still working on that. Some quilts were coming in from overseas and aged artificially, and some were real but stolen from estates. Tom was just a small part of it. He aged the fakes to look convincing. Walter was the mastermind, and it seems all that will die with him. I hope that will be the end of it. And thanks to you two, we got a lot further than we would have. Thanks to my boots, Ettie said, going on to explain how her boots led to finding the body and then meeting Tom Wallace. Detective drained the rest of his coffee. That's quite a story. Elsa-May leaned forward. Well, you know where to find us if you need more unrequested help. Kelly chuckled and stood. That I do. Just promise me you won't get yourselves into trouble while I wrap this up. Ettie raised her eyebrows. We have no plans to do anything. After another mouthful of coffee, the detective said, I will admit that I thought it was one of the sisters, either Clara or Marla, who killed Walter. And then when I heard about the other sister, I thought it had to be one of the three of them. Passions run deep, and when siblings are involved, there's a lot of history there. Elsa-May raised an eyebrow. Well, Eddie's been living in my shadow for years. She's handling it well. At least she hasn't tried to do away with me yet. Ettie gasped and placed a hand over her heart. Your shadow, hum? Elsa-May shrugged playfully. It's true. I've always been the charming one. Kelly chuckled. I can see that. Well, I shall leave you ladies and get back to my paperwork. He picked up his half-eaten cake. For the road. I'll see myself out. When he was gone, Elsa-May turned to Ettie with a grin. I think Kelly's starting to like us. Ettie laughed. He's getting used to us. It's only taken several years, but he's still not calling us by our first names. He probably never will. Elsa-May poured another cup of tea and reached for a slice of cake. She stared at the cake and paused. You know, after everything that's happened, I'm not sure I can trust anything baked by you, seeing you've been in my shadow your whole entire life. Oh please. It's your favorite lemon cake. If there's any danger, it's that you'll keep eating it until there's none left. Elsa-May took a cautious bite and then swallowed. After a moment she looked over at Ettie. I'm still alive. For now, Ettie said. Elsa-May grinned. You still owe me a quilt. Ah, I knew you'd never let me forget that. I won't let you forget it, that's right. But for now it can wait. Elsa-May had a sip of tea. After all this excitement, a little peace and quiet might be nice. And I'm going to enjoy that while it lasts, Ettie said with a smile. Both sisters settled back into their chairs, content in their simple routine, at least until the next mystery found them. On the couch behind them, Kelly the cat continued his peaceful snoring, while through the window came the distant sound of Snowy barking at something outside. Thank you for reading Quilty Until Proven Innocent.